It is 3 in the morning, and the world is draped in a profound silence. The house is still, your partner or family breathing softly in another room. The city outside has finally surrendered to the quiet of the deep night. But for you, there is no peace. You lie in bed, your body heavy with exhaustion, yet your mind is painfully, stubbornly awake. It is a frantic marketplace of thoughts, each one shouting for attention. An email you forgot to send, a conversation from last week that you keep replaying, the ever-present worry about bills, about your health, about the future of those you love. Each thought is a spark, igniting another, until your mind is a wildfire of anxiety. This is a unique and lonely prison, the feeling of being tired beyond measure, yet locked out from the release of sleep. You have tried everything, counting sheep, warm milk, avoiding screens, but the storm inside simply will not cease. This experience, this nightly battle, is more than just a medical condition we call insomnia. It is a symptom of a deeper spiritual ailment of our modern age. We live in a world that is addicted to noise, to speed, to constant stimulation. From the moment we wake to the moment we try to rest, we are bombarded with information, with expectations, with the relentless pressure to be more, to do more, to have more. We have become disconnected from the quiet sanctuary within ourselves, and so we search for peace everywhere except for the one place it has always been waiting, inside. We look for solutions in a pill, a distraction, a quick fix, forgetting that the restlessness we feel is not a flaw in our body, but a cry from our mind. It is a mind that has not been taught how to be still, how to rest, how to simply be. But what if there was another way? What if, instead of fighting the darkness, we could learn how to gently light a candle within it? This is the invitation of Buddhist wisdom. It does not offer a magic formula to force the mind into submission. Instead, it offers a practical and compassionate toolkit, a set of ancient practices designed to help us understand our own mind, to soothe its fears, and to cultivate an inner landscape where peace can naturally blossom. The journey we are about to embark upon is not about chasing sleep. It is about creating the conditions for rest to arise on its own. It is about learning to tidy the inner home of our mind, so that sleep may enter not as a fugitive we have captured, but as a cherished guest, welcomed into a space of calm, acceptance, and profound quiet. To begin this journey, we must first give a name to the invisible force that holds us captive in the sleepless hours of the night. We must identify the architect of our anxiety, the frantic voice that turns the sanctuary of our bed into a courtroom of self-judgment and fear. In the ancient language of Buddhist wisdom, this phenomenon has a wonderfully accurate and compassionate name, the monkey mind. It is not a clinical diagnosis, nor is it a sign of being broken. It is a universal metaphor for the untamed, restless, and exquisitely human nature of our own consciousness. It describes a mind that leaps from one branch of thought to another, without pause, without our conscious permission. It swings from a memory of the past, to a sensation in the present, to a worry about the future, all within the space of a single breath. It is agitated, easily distracted, and constantly chattering. Recognizing this monkey mind is the very first step toward finding peace, not by caging the monkey, but by understanding its nature and learning, with great patience, to befriend it. Imagine for a moment an ancient story told to young monks to explain this inner restlessness. They are asked to picture a wild monkey, one born and raised in the dense jungle. Now, imagine this monkey is suddenly captured and brought into an empty house. This house has 5 large open windows. The first window looks out onto a vibrant, colorful garden. The second window opens to a bustling street full of strange and compelling sounds. The third, a kitchen filled with the scent of cooking food. The fourth, a place where the wind carries all sorts of interesting feelings against the skin. And the fifth, a place of strange and delicious tastes. The monkey, trapped in this house, is in a state of constant agitation. It leaps to the first window, captivated by a flower, but before it can truly see it, a loud noise from the second window pulls its attention. It jumps to the second window, but then the smell of food from the third window becomes irresistible. It scrambles across the room, only to be distracted by a cool breeze from the fourth. It never rests. It is a prisoner of its own impulsive nature, pulled relentlessly from one stimulus to another, never finding a moment of stillness, never truly experiencing anything fully. This, the story concludes, is the state of the untrained human mind. The 5 windows are our 5 senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. They constantly feed our mind with information from the outside world, and our attention, like the monkey, leaps between them without our control. But the Buddha added a crucial detail to this story. He said there is also a 6th window. This window does not look outside, it looks inward, into the mind itself. It is the window of thoughts, memories, ideas, and emotions. And our monkey mind is just as captivated by this inner world as it is by the outer one. This is why, even when we are in a quiet room with our eyes closed, the monkey does not rest. It simply turns its full attention to this sixth window. It finds a worry and clings to it, examining it from every angle. Then it leaps to a memory, replaying a past event with fresh regret or longing. Then it swings to a future fantasy, building elaborate scenarios of success or failure. This inner world is an endless jungle for the monkey to explore, and it does so with boundless, chaotic energy. This relentless activity is not a mistake of our biology. In fact, this monkey mind is a feature, not a bug, of our evolutionary design. For hundreds of thousands of years, the survival of our ancestors depended on a mind that was constantly scanning, planning, and worrying. A mind that could not stop thinking was a mind that was more likely to notice the subtle rustle in the grass that signaled a predator, or remember the location of a fruiting tree, or anticipate the needs of the tribe through a harsh winter. This constant internal chatter was a survival mechanism. The part of your brain that is worrying about your job security tonight is using the same ancient software that once worried about a saber-toothed tiger. The mind doesn't distinguish between a real, present threat to your life and an imagined, future threat to your ego or comfort. It treats both with the same level of panicked urgency. And so, the monkey screams and chatters, believing it is protecting you. It is a loyal, if misguided, servant. Understanding this allows us to cultivate a sense of compassion for our own restless minds. It is not trying to harm us. It is trying, in its own clumsy and outdated way, to keep us safe. This is precisely why the experience of the monkey mind becomes so intensely amplified at night. During the day, we provide the monkey with endless distractions. The 5 external windows are wide open. The demands of work, the flow of conversation, the music on the radio, the tasks on our to-do list, the endless scroll of our phone saw, of these things keep the monkey occupied. It has a vast external jungle to play in. But then, night comes. We turn off the lights. We silence the noise. We lie down in the dark. One by one, we close the external windows. There are no more sights, no more sounds, no more tasks to perform. And what happens? The monkey, now bored and with nowhere else to go, turns with its full, undivided and frantic energy to the only window left open, the 6th window of the mind. This is when the inner chaos truly begins. A single, innocent thought can arise. I hope I can get to sleep soon. The monkey grabs it. What if I don't sleep? I have that big meeting tomorrow. If I don't sleep, I'll be tired. If I'm tired, I'll perform badly. If I perform badly, my boss will notice. Maybe I'll lose my job. If I lose my job, how will I pay my rent? In a matter of seconds, the monkey has swung from a simple thought to a full-blown catastrophe. It creates elaborate stories, weaving together past failures and future fears into a tight knot of anxiety in your chest. The body responds to these stories as if they were real. Your heart rate increases. Your muscles tense. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your body is now in a state of high alert, preparing for a threat that exists only in the narrative spun by the monkey. And of course, in this state of high alert, sleep is impossible. This creates a vicious cycle. The more you cannot sleep, the more the monkey panics about not sleeping, which makes sleep even more elusive. Our natural, human instinct, when faced with this inner chaos, is to fight it. We tell the monkey to shut up. We try to force our mind to be blank. We get angry and frustrated with ourselves. Why can't I just stop thinking, we demand. But imagine trying to silence a frantic monkey by yelling at it. Imagine trying to catch it and hold it still. Your aggression would only frighten it more, making it more agitated, more desperate to escape. Fighting your thoughts has the exact same effect. The act of suppression is an act of attention. The more you try not to think about something, the more you are, in fact, thinking about it. This battle is exhausting, and it is a battle you can never win. Here, Buddhist practice offers a radical and deeply compassionate alternative. Instead of fighting the monkey, simply watch it. Instead of being a frustrated zookeeper trying to impose your will, become a curious biologist, observing this creature in its natural habitat. Find a comfortable position and just notice, without judgment. Without trying to change anything, just observe the monkey's antics. You can note to yourself, with a gentle, curious tone, there is the monkey, worrying about money. Look how it jumps from that bill, to that expense, to that fear of scarcity. And now, it has let go of that, and jumped to a memory from childhood. How interesting. And now, it's planning tomorrow's lunch. This practice of non-judgmental observation is the beginning of wisdom. It is the beginning of freedom, because in the moment, you decide to watch the thought instead of becoming the thought. A space is created, a small, quiet clearing in the dense jungle of the mind, and in that space, a profound realization can begin to dawn. You are not the monkey. You are not the chaos. You are not the fear, or the anger, or the endless stream of thoughts. You are the one who is watching. You are the awareness in which all of this activity is taking place. Your thoughts are like clouds passing through the vast open sky of your awareness. Sometimes the sky is full of dark, stormy clouds. Sometimes it is clear and blue, but you are not the clouds. You are the sky. The sky does not fight the clouds. It simply allows them to be, to come, and to go, knowing that its own vast, peaceful nature is never touched or diminished by them. This is the ultimate shift in perspective. The goal is not to get rid of the monkey. The monkey mind is part of our human inheritance. Its energy and creativity can even be a source of great insight when it is not consumed by fear. The goal is simply to stop letting the monkey run the house. It is to change your relationship with it from one of constant battle to one of gentle, spacious, and wise observation. By practicing this, you untangle yourself from the stories it tells. You unhook yourself from the chain of anxiety. You learn to rest in the quiet awareness that is your true nature, allowing the chatter of the mind to simply be what it is. Noise in the distance. A passing storm that no longer has the power to disturb your inner peace. This is the first, most crucial step on the path to a calm mind and a truly peaceful night. Having identified the restless, chattering monkey within our own minds, we must now turn our attention to the world it creates. We must look honestly at the texture of the experience that this untamed mind produces, especially in the stark and silent hours of the night. The Buddhist tradition gives a name to this experience, a single, profound word that is often misunderstood. That word is dukkha. In English, it is most commonly translated as suffering. And for many, this is where the shutters come down. The word sounds heavy, pessimistic, even morbid. It can lead to the mistaken belief that Buddhism is a philosophy of negativity, one that denies the joy and beauty of life. But this is a profound misunderstanding, born from the limitations of translation. To truly begin our journey, we must redefine dukkha, not as a blanket condemnation of life, but as a wise, precise, and deeply compassionate diagnosis of our shared human condition. Imagine you have been feeling unwell for months, a subtle but persistent lack of energy, a general sense of unease. You finally go to a wise and reputable physician. The physician runs a series of tests, asks you thoughtful questions, and then sits down with you and gives you a clear diagnosis. They name your condition. In that moment, do you accuse the physician of being negative or pessimistic? Of course not. You feel a sense of relief. The vague, shapeless struggle now has a name. You can understand it. And most importantly, because there is a diagnosis, there can be a path to a cure. The Buddha is often described as the great physician. The first of his Four Noble Truths, the truth of dukkha, is simply this diagnosis. It is a courageous, unflinching, and realistic look at the nature of an unenlightened existence. It is not a statement that life is only pain and misery. There is joy, there is love, there is beauty. But the Buddha recognized that woven into the very fabric of our ordinary lives, there is an undercurrent of something else. A subtle friction, a sense of stress, a fundamental unsatisfactoriness that persists as long as our minds are run by the restless monkey. Looking at dukkha is not an act of pessimism. It is the most courageous act of optimism, because it is the necessary first step toward lasting healing. To understand this diagnosis more deeply, the physician of the mind broke dukkha down into three distinct yet interconnected types. The first is the most obvious, dukkha, the suffering of pain. This is the raw, unmistakable ouch of life. It is the headache that throbs behind your eyes as you lie in bed. It is the ache in your back from tossing and turning. It is the sharp physical discomfort of a body that craves rest but cannot find it. But it is also emotional pain. It is the loneliness that feels like a hollow space in your chest at 3 a.m. It is the sting of a harsh word spoken earlier in the day. It is the grief for a loved one, a pain that can feel as fresh and raw in the quiet of the night as it did years ago. It is the acute anxiety that makes your heart race and your stomach churn. This is dukkha in its most recognizable form. It is the pain that we actively try to avoid and get rid of, the clear and present suffering that the monkey mind often latches onto and magnifies. The second type of dukkha is more subtle and perhaps even more pervasive. It is called viparinama dukkha, the suffering of change. This form of suffering arises from the universal truth of impermanence. It is the stress and anxiety that comes from the fact that nothing lasts. Even our happiest moments are tinged with this dukkha, because a part of us knows that they will end. Think of a perfect, joyful day. The pleasure we feel is real, but underneath it, the monkey mind is already at work, whispering, "This won't last," or "How can I make this happen again?" This creates a subtle anxiety, a clinging to the pleasant, and an aversion to the unpleasant. When we lie awake at night, this form of dukkha is intensely present. We suffer because we cling to the memory of what it was like to sleep soundly, and we have a powerful aversion to our current state of wakefulness. We suffer from the change from health to sickness, from security to insecurity, from peace to anxiety. The very fact that life is a constant, unpredictable flow of arising and passing away is, for the untamed mind, a source of deep and persistent stress. We are like someone trying to build a permanent sandcastle right at the edge of the ocean, constantly frustrated and anxious as the waves of change inevitably wash it away. The third and most profound level is sankhara dukkha, the suffering of conditioned existence. This is the background static of dissatisfaction that is woven into the very nature of being a self. It is a fundamental unease that arises because our existence is dependent on a multitude of shifting conditions. Our happiness depends on our health, our job, our relationships, the state of the world, and the chemical balance in our brain, all of which are constantly changing and beyond our ultimate control. Sankhara dukkha is that vague, nagging feeling that something is not quite right, something is missing, even when, on the surface, everything seems fine. It is the existential restlessness that makes us constantly seek the next purchase, the next experience, the next relationship, hoping it will finally fill the void. It is this deep, foundational dukkha that surfaces with such clarity in the middle of the night. When all the daytime distractions have fallen away, we are left alone with the raw, conditioned nature of our existence, and the monkey mind, feeding on this unease, creates endless stories of lack and fear. It is the suffering of being a fragile, temporary self in a vast, impersonal, and ever-changing universe. To truly grasp how understanding dukkha can be liberating rather than depressing, consider the ancient story of Kisa Gotami. She was a young woman whose first and only child had died. Consumed by a grief so powerful it drove her to madness, she refused to accept his death. She clutched the small, cold body to her chest and wandered from house to house, desperately begging for medicine that could restore her son's life. People thought she was mad, but one compassionate person saw her immense suffering and directed her to the Buddha. She ran to him, laid her child at his feet, and pleaded for his help. The Buddha looked at her with infinite compassion and said, "I can make the medicine you seek, but to do so, I require one ingredient. You must bring me a single mustard seed from a house in the village where no one, not a parent, a child, a spouse, or a savanthus ever died." Kisa Gotami, her heart filled with a desperate hope, began her quest. She knocked on the first door. "The Buddha has sent me for a mustard seed to heal my son," she explained. "Can you give me one?" "Of course," the kind woman inside replied. "We have plenty." As she was about to hand it over, Kisa Gotami remembered the Buddha's condition. "Has anyone in this house ever known death?" she asked. The woman's face fell. "Oh, my dear," she said softly, "the living are few, but the dead are many. Last year, my husband died." Filled with disappointment, Kisa Gotami went to the next house, and the next, and the next. The story was the same at every door. "We have mustard seeds, but my mother died here. I can give you a seed, but my son was taken from me. Our father passed in this very room." As the day wore on, her frantic, personal griefer, dukkha, began to transform. She was no longer just a mother who had lost her child. She was a woman hearing the universal story of human existence. She realized that loss, pain, and death were not a curse that had fallen upon her alone. They were a shared, inescapable part of life's fabric. Her sharp, isolated suffering dissolved into a vast, compassionate understanding of the suffering of all beings. With this wisdom, she was finally able to let go, to properly grieve her son, and to begin her own path toward healing and enlightenment. When you lie awake at night, trapped in the lonely spotlight of your own anxiety, your mind cries out, "Why me? Why can't I just be at peace?" This is the cry of Kisa Gotami before she began her journey. It is the suffering of feeling isolated in your struggle, but the teaching of dukkha is the journey itself. It is the knocking on every door and realizing that your restlessness, your anxiety, your feeling of unsatisfactoriness is not a personal failure. It is the human condition. It is the starting point. By looking at it clearly, by bravely giving it a name, you are not surrendering to despair. You are joining the human family. You are seeing things as they truly are. And only from that place of clear seeing, of honest diagnosis, can a true and lasting peace begin to emerge. You are beginning to see, just as Kisa Gautami did, that the path out of suffering does not lie in finding a world without pain, but in developing a mind that is no longer disturbed by it. We have now stood before the great, honest mirror of dukkha. We have seen the diagnosis of our condition, the restless monkey mind, the pervasive unsatisfactoriness of a life spent in resistance to change, the deep background hum of anxiety. Faced with this truth, our most basic hardwired human instinct is to fight. We resist. We push back against the diagnosis, against the reality of the moment. If the experience is unpleasant, like the stark wakefulness of a sleepless night, we declare war upon it. We believe that through sheer force of will, through more effort, more struggle, we can conquer our reality and bend it to our desires. We tense our bodies, we clench our minds, and we push with all our might against the unmovable wall of the present moment. And in this struggle, we find the very essence of our suffering. The path to peace, therefore, begins with a step that feels utterly counterintuitive, a step that the terrified monkey mind will scream against. It is the path of gentle surrender, the profound and liberating power of acceptance. Imagine you are walking through an unfamiliar landscape and suddenly find your feet sinking into the ground. A cold dread washes over you as you realize you are trapped in quicksand. Your first, panicked instinct is to struggle. You thrash your arms, you kick your legs, desperately trying to climb out. But to your horror, you discover that every frantic movement, every ounce of energy you expend fighting the quicksand, only serves to pull you deeper. Your resistance becomes the very agent of your demise. The more you fight, the faster you sink. Your war against your predicament is a war you cannot win, and it is draining the very life force you need to survive. Then, in a moment of terrifying clarity, you remember a piece of forgotten wisdom. You must stop fighting. You must do the opposite of what every fiber of your being is screaming at you to do. You must surrender to the quicksand. You force yourself to stop struggling, to lie back, to spread your arms and legs wide, distributing your weight across the surface. And then, a miracle occurs. You stop sinking. You are floating. You are not free from the quicksand yet, but you have ended the struggle that was killing you. By accepting the reality of your situation and working with its properties instead of against them, you have found a path to salvation. This is a perfect metaphor for the nightly battle against sleeplessness. Your state of wakefulness is the quicksand. Your mind, in a panic, begins to thrash about. This is a disaster, it screams. I must get to sleep. I cannot handle tomorrow if I do not sleep now. This mental struggling is not just a series of thoughts. It is a profound physical event. Feel it in your own body. Notice the clenching of your jaw, the tightening of the muscles in your neck and shoulders as if you are bracing for an impact. Notice how your breathing becomes shallow and constricted in your chest. Your heart may beat faster. Your body is reacting to your thoughts of resistance, as if it were in a real, physical fight for its life. It is preparing for war, and the battlefield is you. This internal war consumes a tremendous amount of energy. It is what leaves us feeling not just tired from lack of sleep, but utterly shattered, defeated, and wrung out by morning. The truth is, the exhaustion we feel often comes less from the wakefulness itself, and more from the hours we spend violently struggling against it. We are sinking ourselves in the quicksand of our own resistance. It is crucial here to understand the profound difference between acceptance and its weak cousin, resignation. Our minds often confuse the two, fearing that to accept a difficult situation is to give up, to become passive, to let the world walk all over us. This is resignation, and it is a state of hopeless, collapsed defeat. Resignation looks at the quicksand and says, "This is terrible, it has beaten me, there is nothing I can do," and it gives up, sinking into despair. It is a powerless state, a closing of all doors. Acceptance, on the other hand, is an act of supreme strength, clarity, and empowerment. Acceptance looks at the quicksand and says, "Okay, this is the reality of this moment. I am in quicksand. I will not waste one more ounce of precious energy fighting the fact that this is where I am. I will stop the futile struggle." Acceptance is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a skillful response. It is the opening of a door. By ceasing the fight with what is, we liberate all of the energy we were wasting. And this new, freed-up energy can now be used wisely. Once you are floating on the surface of the quicksand, you are in a position to think clearly, to signal for help, or to slowly, carefully, begin working your way towards solid ground. Similarly, once you accept right now, I am awake, you stop the panicked fight, and you can then choose a wise response. Since I am awake, perhaps I can practice some gentle breathing. Perhaps I can listen to the sounds in the room without judgment. Perhaps I can use this quiet time for peaceful reflection. Let us try a small experiment right now, or the next time you find yourself lying in bed, caught in the struggle. First, simply notice the resistance, without judging it. Just feel it. Where is it in your body? Is it a tightness in your forehead? A knot in your stomach? Hear the voice of resistance in your mind. What words is it using? This is wrong. I can't stand this. It needs to stop. Just acknowledge that the war is happening. Now, as an experiment, try gently laying down your weapons. You can do this with a simple, silent phrase, offered to yourself with as much kindness as you can muster. You might say, "It's okay. I can't sleep right now. This is the reality of this moment." Or even more simply, "This is it." Or, "I accept this moment, just as it is." Say the words silently, and then just notice what happens. Do not expect a lightning bolt of change. Do not expect to instantly fall asleep. That is not the goal. The goal is simply to observe the shift from a state of war to a state of truce. You may notice a tiny unclamping in your jaw. Your shoulders might drop by a millimeter. You might find that you can take a slightly deeper breath. In that small release, you will find a taste of peace. This is the peace that was always there, buried underneath the violent struggle of resistance. You did not create it. You simply allowed it to be revealed. You have stopped adding the suffering of resistance on top of the discomfort of wakefulness. You have stopped adding the second arrow. You have stopped flailing in the quicksand. You are just floating in the reality of the present moment. This act of gentle surrender is not passive. It is the most active, courageous, and transformative choice you can make when you are suffering. It is the turning point. It is the moment you reclaim your power, not by trying to control the uncontrollable, but by changing the one thing you do have power over, your own response. It is a profound act of kindness toward yourself, an acknowledgement that you do not need to fight every battle. By laying down your arms, you do not lose the war. You realize the war itself was the source of your pain. In the quiet space of acceptance, you find a stillness, a strength, and a clarity that frantic resistance could never provide. And it is from this still, clear, and accepting space that we can now learn to use the most simple and powerful tool we possess to anchor ourselves in the peace of the present moment. We have now arrived at a place of quiet truce. By courageously choosing acceptance over resistance, we have stopped flailing in the quicksand of our own mind. We have laid down our weapons in the nightly war against wakefulness. A space has been created, a quiet clearing in the jungle. But the sounds of the monkey mind can still be heard in the distance, threatening to draw us back into the chaos. In this new, open space of acceptance, we need a focal point. We need an anchor, something to hold onto that is steady and true, something that can keep our vessel from being swept away by the capricious currents of thought and emotion. We do not need to look far for this anchor. We do not need to acquire anything new. We possess it already. It has been with us from the moment we were born, and it will stay with us until our very last moment. It is the breath. This simple, humble, and life-sustaining rhythm of the body is the most fundamental and powerful tool we have for calming the nervous system and anchoring the mind in the safety of the present moment. Before we learn how to use this anchor, it is helpful to understand why it works so powerfully. Your body has an intelligent, self-regulating network called the autonomic nervous system. It has two main branches. The first is the sympathetic nervous system, our fight or flight response. This is the system that the panicked monkey mind activates. When you worry about the future or ruminate on the past, your mind sends a signal that you are in danger, and this system kicks into gear. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, your breathing becomes short and shallow, and your body is flooded with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. This is a state of high alert, designed for survival, but it is the absolute opposite of the state required for rest. The second branch is the parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest response. This system promotes calm, lowers the heart rate, relaxes the muscles, and allows for healing and rejuvenation. You cannot simply think your way into this state. You cannot command your nervous system to be calm, but you can send it a direct, undeniable, physical signal that you are safe. That signal is the breath. When you consciously slow down your breathing, making it gentle, rhythmic, and deep within the abdomen, you are manually activating the parasympathetic nervous system. It is a biological override switch. You are telling every cell in your body, in a language it understands far better than words, that the threat is gone. The tiger is not at the cave entrance. You are safe. You can rest. So, let us learn how to rest our attention on this anchor. This practice, known as anapanasati in the Buddhist tradition, is one of sublime simplicity. The next time you find yourself awake and willing, Begin by finding a comfortable position. Lying in bed is perfectly fine. There is no need to sit in a rigid, formal posture. The aim is comfort and ease. Gently close your eyes if you wish, and set a single, soft intention. Your intention is not to force yourself to sleep. It is not to achieve a special state. Your sole intention is to rest your mind on the feeling of your own breathing for a little while. This gentle intention removes all pressure to succeed, and in doing so, creates the very conditions for peace to arise. Now, bring your awareness to the physical sensations of your breath. You can choose one spot to be your primary point of focus. For some, this is the tip of the nostrils, feeling the subtle coolness of the air as it enters and the gentle warmth as it leaves. For others, it is the rise and fall of the chest. And for many, the most calming spot is the abdomen, feeling the soft expansion on the in-breath and the gentle release on the out-breath. Choose whichever spot feels most natural to you. There is no need to change your breathing in any way. If your breath is shallow, simply be aware of a shallow breath. If it is deep, be aware of a deep breath. You are not the controller of the breath. You are the curious observer. Just feel the raw physical sensations. Let your attention be held by this simple, rhythmic, and vital dance. Rest here. This is your anchor. This is home base. Inevitably, perhaps after only a few seconds, you will discover that your mind has wandered. You will find yourself lost in thought, planning, remembering, or worrying. Please, listen carefully to this next instruction, as it is the most important of all. The moment you realize your mind has wandered is not a moment of failure, it is a moment of victory. That very instant of realizing, I've been lost in thought, is a moment of pure mindfulness. You have woken up from the dream of thinking. Do not be discouraged. Do not criticize yourself. The monkey mind is simply doing what it does. Your task is not to scold it, but to gently, kindly, and with the patience you would show a small puppy, guide your attention back to your anchor, back to the feeling of the breath. This process of wandering, noticing, and gently returning is the practice itself. Each time you guide your attention back to the breath, you are performing a sacred repetition. You are strengthening the muscle of your attention. You are weakening the habit of being lost in thought. You are, anchor pull by anchor pull, drawing your ship back to the calm harbor of the present moment. This is why the breath is the ultimate refuge. Your thoughts can drag you into 1,000 painful or distracting places. They can take you into the irreversible past, filled with regret, or into the unknowable future, filled with anxiety. The past and future are imaginary worlds, ghost realms where the monkey mind loves to play. But the breath is always, unfailingly, real. And it is always, unfailingly, happening right now. Your breath cannot exist yesterday. It cannot exist tomorrow. It is rooted completely and utterly in the present moment. Therefore, every time you return your awareness to the simple sensation of breathing, you are returning to reality. You are returning to the only moment where life is actually happening. The storm of thoughts may rage around you, but your anchor is holding you firm to the solid ground of the here and now. The waves of emotion can rise and fall, but they cannot sweep you away because you are anchored in the quiet truth of this in-breath and this out-breath. There is a beautiful story of the Buddha teaching this very practice to his own son, a young novice monk named Rahula. He did not give him a complex philosophical lecture. He offered him a simple, elegant metaphor. He told Rahula to be like a skilled woodworker. When a carpenter is using a saw, or a wood turner is using a lathe, they pay close and careful attention to their work. As they make a long cut, they know, I am making a long cut. As they make a shortcut, they know, I am making a shortcut. Their attention is intimate with the action. It is precise, simple, and non-judgmental. They are not thinking, oh, this is a wonderful cut, or I am a terrible carpenter. They are simply present with the reality of the action. The Buddha advised his son to be with the breath in the same way. Breathing in a long breath, I am breathing in a long breath. Breathing out a short breath, I am breathing out a short breath. This is the essence of the practice. It is an invitation to be intimate with the simple reality of your own aliveness, moment by moment by moment. Your breath, which you may have ignored for most of your life, is your most loyal and trustworthy companion. It asks nothing of you, and yet it offers a direct path back to sanity, reality, and peace in any given moment. It is the anchor in the storm, the calm harbor, the quiet rhythm of life itself. See it not as a mere automatic function, but as a sacred gift. It is the tool for inner peace that you carry with you at all times. The practice is not about adding anything new to your experience. It is simply about becoming acquainted, perhaps for the first time, with the gentle and unwavering friend that has been with you all along, patiently waiting to guide you home. We have found our anchor in the gentle, rhythmic reality of the breath. We have learned that by resting our attention there, we can find a safe harbor from the turbulent storms of the monkey mind. Now, from this place of relative stability, we are ready to open our eyes and observe a profound and universal truth about the nature of reality itself. It is a truth that, once seen clearly, holds the power to liberate us from the deepest roots of our anxiety. This truth, in the ancient Pali language, is called anicca. It means impermanence. It is the simple, radical, and undeniable fact that everything changes. Everything that arises will cease. Every beginning has an ending. Every meeting has a parting. Every sound dissolves into silence. This is not a depressing philosophy. It is not a call to nihilism. It is a statement of fact, as fundamental as gravity. And learning to see and live in harmony with this truth is the key to unlocking a peace that does not depend on our circumstances. There is an old story, told in various forms across many traditions, that perfectly illustrates this wisdom. It speaks of a great and powerful king who possessed everything a person could desire: wealth, power, and respect. Yet, he was a slave to his own moods. When things went well, he would be overcome with a triumphant, grasping joy. And when things went badly, he would plunge into the depths of a bitter, inconsolable despair. His emotional life was a violent pendulum, swinging between elation and misery. Weary of this inner turmoil, he summoned the wisest counselor in his kingdom. "I want you to create for me a ring," the king commanded. "Inscribe upon it a message that has the power to temper my joy when I am victorious, and to give me hope when I am defeated. It must work in every circumstance." The counselor went away and returned sometime later with a simple, unadorned gold band. The king was initially unimpressed until the counselor pointed to the tiny inscription etched on the inside. The king read the words, "This too shall pass." Sometime later, the king's army suffered a devastating defeat. His kingdom was on the verge of collapse, and he was hiding, alone, and in despair. He looked at the ring on his finger, and the message, "This too shall pass," was no longer just words. It was a lifeline. It reminded him that his current state of defeat was not a permanent reality. It was a chapter, not the whole story. This gave him the strength to persevere. Years later, the king stood at the pinnacle of his power, having conquered all his enemies and secured a legacy of unparalleled glory. At a lavish feast in his honor, surrounded by adulation, he felt an ecstatic pride swelling in his chest. In that moment of supreme triumph, his eyes fell upon the ring. "This too shall pass." The message instantly humbled him. It reminded him not to cling to this fleeting moment of glory, not to build his identity upon a foundation that was, by its very nature, temporary. The wisdom of anicca gave him both solace in sorrow and humility in happiness. It gave him balance. This ancient story reveals the primary way in which we create our own suffering. Life can be compared to a great, flowing river. The river of experience is constantly moving, constantly changing. There are pleasant currents, where the water is warm and the scenery is beautiful. There are unpleasant currents, where the water is cold and the rapids are dangerous. The principle of anicca teaches that the river is always in flow. But our monkey mind, terrified of this flow, engages in a constant, exhausting project of resistance. When it encounters a pleasant currenta moment of joy, a feeling of comfort, a successful achievement, it desperately tries to stop the river. It builds a dam of craving and attachment, trying to hold on to that pleasant experience forever, terrified of the moment it will inevitably end. And when the mind encounters an unpleasant currenta feeling of anxiety, a difficult conversation, a painful sensation, it frantically tries to build a wall of aversion to push the river away, to deny its presence. This constant building of dams of craving and walls of aversion is the essence of our stress. We are fighting a futile battle against the fundamental nature of reality, and it is this fight, not the river itself, that causes us to suffer. Now, let us apply this profound truth directly to the experience of a sleepless night. When you are lying in bed, feeling trapped and agitated, your mind tells you a story of permanence. It feels as if this state is a solid, unchanging block of misery that will last forever. Anicca is the light that shatters this illusion. You can begin by observing the physical sensations. The feeling of being too warm, the ache in your shoulders, the buzzing energy in your legs. Instead of seeing these as a single, monstrous thing called discomfort, see them through the lens of anicca. Notice that these sensations are not static. They are a shimmering, constantly shifting constellation of smaller feelings. A pulse here, a warmth there, a prickle here. They arise, they stay for a moment, and they change. They are not solid, they are a process. This feeling that is here right now was not here an hour ago, and it will not be exactly the same an hour from now. It will pass. Then, turn this light of anicca upon your thoughts, the looping worries, the catastrophic stories about tomorrow, the regrets about yesterday. The mind presents these thoughts as solid, important, and true, but they are nothing more than mental weather. A thought of fear is like a dark storm cloud. It is dramatic, it is imposing, and it can obscure the sun. But it is not the sky. It is a temporary formation of energy that has drifted into your awareness. If you watch it without feeding it, without resisting it, it will eventually drift away, just as it came. The anxiety you feel right now is not you. It is a cloud passing through the vast sky of your mind. This too shall pass. Most powerfully, we can apply anicca to the very identity that the mind creates. The story of, I am an insomniac. This label feels so solid, so permanent. But it is a story, not a reality. You are not a static noun. You are a dynamic process. There were countless nights in your past when you slept, and there will be nights in your future when you will sleep again. This particular night of wakefulness, this particular period of your life characterized by poor sleep, is a condition. And because it is a condition, it is subject to the universal law. It is impermanent. When you truly begin to feel this in your bones, the feeling of being trapped dissolves. The walls of the prison are not made of stone, they are made of shifting fog. The breath itself is our greatest teacher of anicca. Come back to your anchor, but now, observe it with this new understanding. Pay close attention to the life cycle of a single breath. Notice how the in-breath is born from a place of stillness, from nothingness. It swells and grows, sustaining your body for a few moments. And then, at its peak, it turns. It begins to fade, to dissolve, until it vanishes completely back into stillness. Then there is a pause, a moment of emptiness, before a new and completely different breath is born. Each breath is a miniature lifetime, a birth, a life, and a death. You are witnessing tens of thousands of these lifetimes every single day. You are not controlling this process. You are watching the fundamental rhythm of the universe, the rhythm of a rising and ceasing play out in the sanctuary of your own body. By becoming intimate with the impermanence of each breath, you are training your mind in a very deep and subtle way to become comfortable with the impermanence of everything. To embrace anicca is not to become cold or detached. It is to become wise, resilient, and deeply peaceful. It allows you to savor the good moments more fully, without the anxiety of clinging to them, and it allows you to endure the difficult moments with grace and courage, knowing that they are not a life sentence. No matter how dark the night, the dawn will come. No matter how fierce the storm of your thoughts, it will eventually exhaust itself. The river of life is always flowing, carrying everything along in its current. Understanding this does not mean you simply give up and get swept away. It means you can finally stop fighting the current, and instead, learn to navigate it with skill, wisdom, and a profound sense of peace. You learn to surf the waves rather than being crushed by them. And the first step in learning to surf is learning the art of letting go. We have stood on the bank of the great river of impermanence, and we have seen the undeniable truth that all things flow and change. We have our anchor of the breath to keep us steady in the current. And yet, a question remains. If everything is in flux, why do we feel so stuck? Why does the suffering of a sleepless night feel so solid, so inescapable? The answer lies in the subtle, powerful, and often unconscious action of our own mind. It lies in the act of grasping, of clinging, of holding on. In the Buddhist tradition, this clinging is called upadana. It is the mental equivalent of clenching our fist around something, refusing to let it go, even when our grip is causing us pain. To understand anicca, impermanence, is to see the nature of the river. To understand upadana, attachment, is to see how we create our own suffering by refusing to flow with it. The art of finding peace, therefore, becomes the gentle art of learning to unclench our hand, the art of letting go. There is a story that illustrates this self-imprisonment with heartbreaking clarity. It describes a method used by villagers in India to trap monkeys. A hunter takes a strong glass jar, or a hollowed-out coconut with a narrow opening, just wide enough for a monkey's open hand to slide through. Inside, the hunter places a handful of nuts or some other tempting treat. Then, he secures the jar to the base of a tree and waits. Soon enough, a monkey will come along. Smelling the treat, its curiosity and desire will take over. It will slide its slender hand into the jar and grasp the delicious prize. But now, it is faced with a problem. Its clenched fist, full of nuts, is too big to fit back through the narrow opening. The monkey pulls and shrieks. It thrashes the jar against the ground. It becomes frantic and terrified. The hunter can walk over at a leisurely pace. The monkey sees him coming, and is filled with terror, but it will not let go of the nuts. Its freedom is just one simple action away. It only needs to open its hand, release the prize, and slide its hand out to scurry up the nearest tree. But it is so completely trapped by its own craving, so attached to the prize it is holding, that it cannot perform this simple act of liberation. And so, it is captured. We are this monkey, and the sleepless night is our jar. We slide our mind into the situation, and we grasp onto a prize. That prize is a rigid set of ideas and expectations. The most common one is the idea, I must get 8 hours of sleep. We clench our mental fist around this number, this outcome. I need this to function. I deserve this. My day will be ruined without it. We hold on to this idea so tightly that our mind becomes trapped. The more we realize we are not getting our prize, the more we panic, just like the monkey. We thrash about mentally, pulling against the reality of the moment, and our own frantic, clinging energy is precisely what keeps us stuck. The situation itself, the state of being awake, is just a situation. It is our fierce attachment to a different outcome that transforms the situation into a torment. Our freedom is just one simple action away. We only need to open our hand, to let go of the rigid demand, to release our clenched fist attachment to how we think things should be. This is where we must understand the critical difference between a healthy desire and a toxic attachment. It is perfectly natural and healthy to desire rest. A desire is a gentle preference. It says, it would be wonderful if I could sleep well tonight. My body would appreciate the rest. This desire is flexible. It has space around it. If the desire is met, there is gratitude. If it is not met, there can still be peace. A toxic attachment, however, is a rigid, non-negotiable demand. It says, I must sleep, and if I do not, it is a catastrophe. It is a declaration of war on any other possible reality. Attachment is desire, with all the flexibility squeezed out of it. It is desire that has hardened into a desperate, fearful need. And this attachment is the source of the anxiety. The anxiety does not come from being awake. It comes from the violent internal conflict between your rigid demand, I must sleep, and the present reality, I am awake. When we cling to outcomes we cannot control, we are setting ourselves up for guaranteed suffering. The art of letting go is the art of softening our desperate demands back into gentle, spacious desires. Consider the image of your own hand. Right now, clench it into a tight fist. Squeeze it with all your might. Feel the tension in your knuckles, in your wrist, in your forearm. Feel the hardness, the rigidity, the strain. This is the mind in a state of attachment. It is defensive, closed, and fighting. A clenched fist cannot receive a gift. It cannot hold another's hand. It cannot feel the subtlety of a cool breeze. It is a state of pure, exhausting struggle. Now, very slowly, begin to open your hand. Feel the tension dissolving. Feel the muscles releasing. Unfurl your fingers until your palm is open and soft. Feel the lightness, the relaxation, the readiness. This is the mind in a state of letting go. It is open, receptive, and at ease. It is ready to receive what comes and to let go of what passes. The entire spiritual practice can be seen as this simple, profound movement, from a clenched mind to an open hand. Letting go is not some abstract philosophical concept. It is a tangible, physical release of tension that you can learn to embody, moment by moment. Let us try a practice to cultivate this skill. The next time you are feeling trapped by a worry, whether at night or during the day, you can try this simple visualization. Imagine you are sitting on the soft, mossy bank of a clear, gently flowing stream. The water moves at its own pace, effortlessly. The sun is warm on your skin. It is a place of deep peace. Now, allow a worry to surface in your mind. It could be the worry about sleep, a concern about work, a difficult memory. Don't fight it. Instead, acknowledge it, and then imagine a single, broad leaf floating on the water near you. In your mind's eye, carefully place the entire worry onto that leaf. You can see it as words, as images, as a dark shape, whatever feels right. Then, with a gentle intention, release the leaf. Just watch as the current of the stream catches it. Watch as it slowly, peacefully, begins to float away from you. It gets smaller and smaller as it drifts downstream, carried along by the natural flow. Do not push it, do not force it. Simply watch it go until it disappears from sight around a bend in the river. Then, take a breath. If another worry arises, another leaf will appear. You can repeat the process as many times as you need. The goal is not to permanently banish all worries. The goal is to practice the gesture of release. It is to rehearse, in the gentle sanctuary of your imagination, the art of letting go. Like the monkey with its hand in the jar, We are often the sole architects of our own imprisonment. We are held captive, not by the circumstances of our lives, but by the ferocity of our own grip. Letting go is not an act of weakness or defeat. It is the ultimate act of wisdom and self-compassion. It is the realization that true freedom is not found in getting what you want, but in releasing your attachment to it. It is the discovery that peace is not something you must chase and capture, but something that is revealed when you finally stop the chase and open your hands. When you are willing to release the prize, you realize that what you gain in return, your own freedom, your own lightness of being, your own profound peace, is infinitely more valuable. We have learned the wisdom of the open hand, the freedom that comes from releasing our tight-fisted grip on how we think life should be. We have practiced letting go of our attachments to specific outcomes, to our worries, to our rigid demands. But once our hand is open, what do we do with it? An empty hand can feel vulnerable, and the mind, in its habitual way, may rush to grasp onto something new. The wisdom of the Buddhist path suggests that we do not leave this hand empty. Instead, we learn to fill it with an active and unconditional warmth. We learn to cultivate a quality known in the Pali language as metta. This word is often translated as loving, kindness, but it can also be understood as boundless friendliness, gentle benevolence, or a sincere and heartfelt goodwill. Metta is the radical practice of applying warmth and kindness to our experience, especially when it is difficult. It is the profound antidote to the coldest and most persistent voice that haunts us in the dark, the voice of our own inner critic. For many of us, particularly in the quiet of a sleepless night, the greatest source of our suffering is not the wakefulness itself, but the harsh, judgmental commentary that accompanies it. A voice arises in the mind, a relentless prosecutor. "You are failing at this," it says. "Why can't you just relax? You are weak, you are broken, you are ruining tomorrow." We become our own worst enemy. This inner critic is often a deeply ingrained pattern, a misguided strategy the mind learned long ago, perhaps in childhood, to try and motivate us through shame and fear. Our culture often reinforces this, teaching us that self-kindness is a form of selfish indulgence, that being hard on ourselves is the only way to improve. We fear that if we are kind to ourselves, we will become lazy and complacent. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of our own nature. You cannot berate a plant into growing. You cannot whip a tired horse into a state of vibrant health. And you cannot hate yourself into a version of yourself that you can love. This constant stream of self-criticism is an act of aggression against our own heart, and it activates the body's threat response just as surely as an external danger. It is, in itself, a source of profound stress and anxiety. Metta is the direct antidote. It is the courageous and healing choice to offer ourselves the same kindness and understanding we would readily offer to a dear friend who was suffering. It is not selfishness. It is the necessary foundation for genuine peace. Without a baseline of friendliness toward ourselves, every other spiritual practice, mindfulness, acceptance, letting go can be hijacked by the inner critic and twisted into another standard we fail to meet. I am not accepting this correctly. I failed at watching my breath. Metta is the soft ground upon which all other practices can safely land. It is the decision to finally call a truce in the long and painful civil war within our own mind. There is a powerful story from the life of the Buddha that illustrates how metta is not a passive, sentimental feeling, but an unstoppable and transformative force. The Buddha's jealous cousin, Devadatta, conspired to assassinate him. As his final and most dramatic attempt, he arranged for Nalagiri, a notoriously fierce and powerful elephant, to be intoxicated with alcohol and unleashed upon the narrow lane where the Buddha was walking. The elephant, in a drunken rage, was a terrifying sight, charging down the lane, destroying everything in its path, trumpeting with fury. People screamed and fled. The Buddha's own disciples urged him to run and save himself, but the Buddha remained perfectly still, his posture relaxed, his face serene. He did not prepare to fight. He did not run. He simply stood his ground and did something extraordinary. He looked upon the raging murderous beast, and he extended his heart, radiating a powerful, unwavering, and boundless field of pure metta. He sent the elephant feelings of absolute safety, friendship, and unconditional love. The story says that as the elephant entered this invisible field of loving kindness, a change began to occur. Its furious charge slowed to a trot, then to a walk. The rage in its eyes softened. The trumpeting of fury subsided. The immense and terrifying beast, which could not have been stopped by any physical weapon, was completely subdued by the sheer force of the Buddha's loving kindness. It walked gently up to the Buddha and, in an act of complete surrender, knelt before him, allowing the Buddha to stroke its head. This raging elephant is our own inner turmoil. It is our self-hatred, our fear, our anxiety, our critical mind. Our first instinct is to fight it, to run from it, or to try and overpower it with force. But these strategies only make it stronger. The story of Nalagiri teaches us that the only force powerful enough to tame the rage within is the fearless, unwavering application of loving kindness. We must learn to meet our own inner demons, not with a sword, but with an open heart. The cultivation of metta, or metta bhavana, is a formal meditation practice, a skill that we can learn and strengthen over time. It traditionally unfolds in stages. You can practice this right now, or whenever you feel the need for inner warmth. Begin by finding a comfortable position and taking a few gentle breaths. The first, and often most challenging stage, is to offer metta to yourself. For many of us, this feels awkward or undeserved. Be patient. Think of this as planting a seed. You can silently repeat a few simple, heartfelt phrases. The traditional phrases are, "May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease." Choose these phrases, or any others that resonate with you. The words themselves are just a container. The true practice is in generating the warm intention behind them. Feel the wish for your own well-being. May I be free from suffering. May I be at peace. Once you have spent some time offering kindness to yourself, the next stage is to bring to mind a dear friend or a loved one, someone for whom you feel easy and uncomplicated affection. Picture them clearly in your mind, and now extend the same wishes to them. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Notice how the feeling of warmth may flow more easily toward this person. Let that feeling of benevolence grow. The third stage is to bring to mind a neutral person, someone you don't have strong feelings about one way or the other. Perhaps a person you see at the grocery store, or a neighbor you don't know well. Picture this person, and extend the same wishes to them. May you be safe. May you be happy. This stage begins to stretch the muscle of metta, helping us to see the shared humanity in those outside our immediate circle. A more advanced stage involves extending these wishes to a difficult person, someone with whom you have conflict. This is not about condoning their behavior, but about recognizing that their actions likely arise from their own suffering, and for the sake of your own peace, you wish for them to be free from that suffering. Finally, you radiate the feeling of metta outwards from your heart in all directions, to all living beings without exception. May all beings in the East, the West, the North, and the South, may all beings everywhere be safe, be happy, be healthy, and live with ease. Now, bring this practice back to the immediate reality of a long, sleepless night. You can see how metta can completely transform the inner narrative. The voice of the inner critic says, "Why are you still awake? This is awful. You're failing." It is a cold, hard, and painful voice. The voice of metta, in response, says, "It's okay that you're awake right now. May you be peaceful in this moment. May your body and mind find the rest they need, in their own time. May you be free from this feeling of anxiety." Can you feel the difference? The external situation has not changed. You are still awake. But the internal environment has been transformed from a cold, hostile torture chamber into a warm, compassionate sanctuary. The struggle is no longer about fighting for sleep. It has become a precious opportunity to practice friendship with yourself, to hold your own suffering with a profound and healing tenderness. Metta is not a passive state. It is an active skill, a creative force we can bring into the world, starting with the world of our own mind. It is the inner sun that can melt the ice of resentment, the bitterness of judgment, and the cold fear that so often grips us in the dark. It is the ultimate resource, the unshakable refuge. When you can learn to become a true and unwavering friend to yourself, you build a foundation of peace so deep and so resilient that no external circumstance, not even the most stubborn and difficult night, can ever truly take it away. Having cultivated a warm and friendly attitude toward ourselves, we now have a safe and compassionate space from which to observe our own mind more closely. In this space, we can begin to identify the specific patterns of thought and feeling that arise to disturb our peace, especially during the long watches of the night. The Buddhist teachings provide a very practical and insightful map for this territory, outlining 5 common mental states that act as the primary obstacles to calm and clarity. These are known as the 5 hindrances, or the nivarana in the ancient Pali language. It is helpful to think of them not as personal flaws or sins, but as 5 common thieves who are known to sneak into the unguarded house of the mind to steal our rest. If we wish to secure our home and enjoy a peaceful night, our first task is not to set violent traps, but simply to learn to recognize the faces of these 5 thieves. To understand their effect, imagine that your mind, in its natural state, is like a pristine, clear bowl of water, perfectly still. When you look into it, You can see your own reflection with perfect clarity. You can see the reflection of the sky, the moon, the truth of things as they are. This clear reflection is wisdom, it is peace. But now, imagine these 5 thieves approach the bowl. The first thief, representing sensory desire, pours a vibrant, colorful dye into the water. The water becomes captivating and exciting, but it is no longer transparent. You can no longer see your reflection. The second thief, representing ill will, places the bowl over a fire. The water begins to bubble and boil, and the surface becomes agitated and turbulent. Your reflection is violently distorted. The third thief, representing sloth and torpor, throws a handful of thick green algae into the bowl. The water becomes murky, stagnant, and overgrown. No light can penetrate it. The fourth thief, representing restlessness and worry, takes a stick and stirs the water relentlessly. The surface is broken into 1,000 chaotic ripples, and your reflection is shattered into unrecognizable fragments. Finally, the fifth thief, representing skeptical doubt, scoops up a handful of mud and dumps it into the bowl. The water becomes completely opaque, and it is impossible to see anything at all. These 5 actions describe precisely what the hindrances do to our mind, preventing us from seeing the peace that is our true nature. Let us meet each thief individually, learn their methods, and discover the gentle antidotes to their mischief. The first thief is sensory desire. This is the mind that is constantly chasing pleasure. It is the part of us that is addicted to pleasant sights, sounds, tastes, smells, and physical sensations. At night, it may not be a desire for external things, but a desire for pleasant mental states. It's the mind that endlessly replays a pleasant memory or constructs elaborate daydreams and fantasies. It is also the intense craving for the sensation of sleep itself, a desperate wanting that, paradoxically, keeps us awake. This is the thief pouring dye into the water, making the mind captivated by chasing pleasure, but unable to rest in simple reality. The antidote to this is the practice of contemplating impermanence, or anicca, which we have already explored. When we remember that all pleasant feelings are fleeting and will pass, our desperate chasing and clinging begins to relax. We can enjoy pleasantness without needing to own it. The second thief is ill will, or aversion. This is the opposite of the first thief. It is the mind that pushes away unpleasant experience. This is the thief who boils the water of the mind with the heat of anger, resentment, frustration, and hatred. During a sleepless night, this often manifests as anger at the situation itself. I hate this feeling. I can't stand being awake another minute. It can also be the mind replaying an argument from the day, stewing in resentment toward another person, or feeling irritation at a small sound like a dripping tap or a distant siren. This simmering anger creates immense tension in the body and mind, making rest impossible. The antidote to the boiling water of ill will is the cooling balm of loving kindness, or metta. As we have practiced, by intentionally generating feelings of friendliness and compassion, first for ourselves, may I be free from this anger, and then for others, we can cool the fires of resentment and bring the mind back to a state of calm. The third thief is sloth and torpor. This is a particularly sneaky thief that often disguises itself as a desire for rest. It is not the healthy tiredness of the body. It is a mental heaviness, a dullness, a fogginess of the mind. It is like having a thick, heavy blanket thrown over your consciousness. The mind feels sluggish, murky, and unworkable, like the water overgrown with algae. There is no energy, no clarity, and no motivation, not even the motivation to practice mindfulness. It's the feeling of being stuck in a mental swamp. The antidote here is the gentle arousing of energy. This doesn't mean forcing yourself to be wide awake, but rather skillfully stimulating the mind just enough to clear the fog. You might try changing your posture for a few moments, opening your eyes and looking at a point in the darkness, or taking 3 or 4 deliberately deep, invigorating breaths. You can also bring to mind an inspiring image or memory, something that naturally brightens the mind and reminds you of your potential for clarity. The fourth thief is perhaps the most familiar to those who struggle with sleep, restlessness, and worry. This is the quintessential monkey mind, the thief who relentlessly stirs the water. Restlessness is the physical agitation, the feeling of needing to move, the inability to find a comfortable position. Worry is its mental counterpart, the mind that is caught in endless loops of planning the future and regretting the past. It is the what-if mind, the mind that creates catastrophic scenarios, the mind that is simply unable to be still. It shatters our peace into 1,000 anxious fragments. The direct antidote to this chaotic energy is returning, again and again, to the anchor of the breath. The steady, rhythmic, calming presence of the breath is the perfect counterpoint to the wild, erratic energy of restlessness. By patiently resting our attention on the breath, we give the mind a stable object to hold on to, and the turbulent waters can gradually, naturally, begin to settle. The fifth and final thief is skeptical doubt. This is the thief who muddies the waters with uncertainty and mistrust. It is the insidious voice that whispers, "This will never work. This whole mindfulness thing is nonsense. You're just wasting your time." It is doubt in the path, doubt in the teachings, and most poisonously, doubt in your own capacity for peace. "I'm just not cut out for this," it says. "Maybe other people can find peace, but not me. I'm a hopeless case." This doubt clouds the mind, paralyzes our effort, and makes us give up before we even truly begin. The antidote to doubt is the cultivation of wise faith. This isn't blind belief, but a quiet trust. You can nurture it by recalling past moments, however small, when the practice did bring you a sliver of peace. Or you can place your trust in the wisdom of those who have walked this path for centuries. Sometimes, the wisest action is to simply acknowledge the doubt. There is the mud of doubt, and then to continue with the practice anyway, with a gentle and patient persistence. The most profound instruction for working with these 5 hindrances is that your primary task is not to violently attack or expel them. To do so is just to create more agitation. The first, most powerful, and often sufficient step is to simply learn to recognize and name them when they appear. When you are lying awake and feel your mind chasing a fantasy, you can gently note to yourself, this is sensory desire. When you feel anger at your sleeplessness, you can whisper, "This is ill will." When the anxious thoughts begin to spin, this is restlessness and worry. This simple act of naming is an act of mindfulness. It brings the thief out of the shadows and into the light of your awareness, and in the light of awareness, the hindrances begin to lose their power over you. You are no longer possessed by them. You are the wise householder who sees them, recognizes them for what they are, and because of that, they can no longer steal your peace so easily. By patiently learning to identify these visitors and apply their gentle antidotes, you are engaging in the skillful art of purifying your own mind, allowing the impurities to settle so that the clear, calm, and reflective nature of your own heart can once again shine through. We have now learned to identify the 5 thieves that disturb our mind and the gentle antidotes we can apply. We have cultivated a spirit of loving kindness to create a warm, safe inner environment. Now, we must consider the house itself. If we want to create a space of deep rest, we must learn to appreciate one of its most essential and misunderstood qualities, silence. In our modern world, we have become deeply, profoundly afraid of quiet. We treat silence as a void, an empty space that must be filled at all costs. But in the wisdom traditions, silence is not an emptiness. It is a fullness. It is not a void, but a sanctuary. It is the very ground in which peace can take root. The practice we will explore now is the cultivation of what is known as noble silence, a stillness that begins on the outside and gradually works its way deep into the heart of the mind. Consider the soundtrack of a typical modern day. We are woken not by the gentle light of the sun, but by the jarring alarm of a phone. While we prepare for the day, a podcast or the morning news fills the air. The commute is accompanied by music or another talk show. Our workspaces are filled with the hum of computers, the chatter of colleagues, the ringing of phones. Even our leisure is filled with noise. The gym has a pounding soundtrack, restaurants have background music, and our evenings are spent in the company of the television, the laptop, the endless stream of video content. We have, as a culture, become addicted to noise. We have forgotten how to simply be in a quiet space, and there is a deep reason for this. When external noise ceases, we are left alone with our internal noise. The silence outside forces us to hear the ceaseless chatter of our own monkey mind, and for most of us, that is an uncomfortable, even terrifying, prospect. We use the constant stream of external sound as a form of anesthetic, a distraction to numb us to our own inner restlessness, our own unresolved anxieties, our own unspoken sadness. But this is a strategy that can never lead to peace. It is like trying to calm a stormy sea by adding more and more waves. True peace requires that we have the courage to turn down the volume, both externally and internally. The path to inner silence almost always begins with the cultivation of outer silence. While the ultimate goal is a mind that is quiet, and still even in a noisy environment, it is far easier to train this quality when we first create the right external conditions. This is a very practical and compassionate first step. One of the most powerful practices you can adopt to transform the quality of your nights is to implement what is sometimes called a digital sunset. This means making a conscious, dedicated choice to turn off all electronic screens at least 1 hour before you intend to go to sleep. This includes your phone, your tablet, your computer, and your television. The benefits of this simple act are twofold. On a purely physiological level, you are removing the blue light emitted by these screens, which is known to interfere with your brain's production of melatonin, the hormone that regulates sleep. You are, in effect, letting your brain know that nighttime has truly arrived. But the psychological benefits are even more profound. By turning off your devices, you are cutting off the relentless fire hose of information, stimulation, and agitation that they provide. You are no longer feeding your mind with late-breaking news stories designed to provoke fear, or with the carefully curated lives on social media designed to provoke comparison and envy, or with the dramatic tension of a thriller series designed to elevate your heart rate. You are giving your mind a precious and necessary cool-down period. You are creating a buffer zone, a quiet transition between the chaos of the day and the hoped-for serenity of the night. This simple act of creating an hour of external silence is a profound declaration. It is a gift you give to your own nervous system. It is a statement of intent that says, I am now preparing my mind for deep rest. The world can wait. This time is for me. This time is for peace. At first, this external silence may feel strange, even unsettling, because once the outer world goes quiet, the inner world often seems to scream. This is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. In fact, it is a sign that the practice is working. The silence has not created this inner noise. It has simply allowed you to finally hear what was there all along, buried beneath the layers of daily distraction. It is like a jar of murky water. When you are constantly shaking it, you are unaware of the mud and sediment inside. But when you place the jar on a table and allow it to be still, the mud slowly begins to settle, and you can see it for what it is. Silence is the act of placing the jar of your mind on the table. In the quiet, you can finally hear the whispers of the 5 hindrances. You can feel the pull of desire, the heat of aversion, the fog of sloth, the jitters of restlessness, and the clouds of doubt. This is not a failure. This is a crucial diagnostic step. You cannot work with an obstacle you cannot see. Silence is the gentle lamp that illuminates the inner landscape of your mind, allowing you to see with clarity what needs your kind attention and care. Let us try a short practice in being with silence. Sometime today or tomorrow, find a place where you can be relatively undisturbed. Set a timer for just 5 minutes. Your only instruction is to sit and be with the silence. You don't need to adopt a special posture or even close your eyes unless you want to. Simply sit and listen. Listen to the sounds of the quiet room and listen to the sounds of your own mind. The most important part of this exercise is to pay close attention to the urge that will almost certainly arise. The urge to fidget, the urge to get up and do something productive, the urge to check your phone. This urge is the physical manifestation of the mind's fear of stillness. It is the monkey mind getting nervous when there are no new trees to swing from. Your task is not to suppress this urge, but to simply notice it. Feel its energy in your body. Watch it arise and watch it pass, without needing to act on it. In these 5 minutes, you are not trying to have a perfectly silent mind. You are trying to become intimate with your own relationship to silence. You are training yourself in a very gentle way to be comfortable in the quiet, spacious house of your own being. There is a famous story from the Zen tradition that speaks to the limits of words and the power of silence. A student, earnest and full of questions, came to a great Zen master and asked him, "Master, what is the nature of ultimate reality? What is the truth of enlightenment?" The master did not speak a single word. He simply raised his hand and pointed a finger toward the beautiful full moon hanging in the night sky. The student, however, did not look at the moon. He stared intently at the master's finger, trying to decipher its meaning. Seeing this, the master sighed and said, "The finger is necessary to point to the moon, but you must not mistake the finger for the moon." All of these words we are sharing, all the concepts we are exploring, the monkey mind, dukkha, anicca, metade, are just fingers pointing at the moon. The moon itself is the direct, lived experience of peace, of reality, and that experience cannot be captured in words. It can only be known in the stillness, in the deep, wordless silence of your own aware presence. Do not be afraid of the quiet. Learn to see it not as an emptiness, but as a rich and fertile spaciousness. It is the sacred pause between the notes that creates the music. It is the open space on the canvas that gives beauty to the brushstroke. It is the nourishing darkness of the soil in which the seeds of wisdom can finally sprout. By intentionally welcoming silence into your life, especially in that precious hour before sleep, you are creating the sanctuary your mind has been longing for. You are preparing the ground. You are, with great kindness, inviting your own heart to finally come home and rest. We have learned to create a sanctuary of external silence, a quiet space where the inner world can finally be heard. We have identified the common thieves of the mind and learned the art of letting go of our attachments. Now, we arrive at the very heart of the practice. We have prepared the room, and we have invited our inner experience to come forward. The crucial question is, how do we greet what we find there? Our habitual tendency is to meet our inner world with an immediate and relentless barrage of judgment. We are the harsh critic, the biased judge, and the swift executioner of our own thoughts and feelings. The practice of mindfulness offers a revolutionary alternative. To meet our experience not with judgment, but with a quiet, steady, and impartial observation. It is the practice of becoming the silent watcher. The judging mind is a deeply ingrained habit, a reflex that operates so quickly we are often unaware of it. An unpleasant sensation arises in the body, and instantly, the mind labels it. This is bad. I don't like this. It shouldn't be here. A memory of a past mistake surfaces, and the mind pronounces its verdict. That was stupid. I am a failure. A wave of anxiety appears, and the mind delivers its sentence. This is a sign of weakness. I need to get rid of this feeling immediately. This constant activity of labeling everything as good or bad, right or wrong, like or dislike, is the very engine of our suffering. It is the mechanism that creates the second arrow. The initial experience, the physical pain, the memory, the emotion eyes, the first arrow. It is often unavoidable. But the judgment, the story we tell ourselves about the experience, is the second arrow that we shoot directly into our own heart. This constant internal battle, this war against our own experience, keeps our nervous system in a state of high alert and makes true peace impossible. To become the silent watcher is to learn how to feel the sting of the first arrow without picking up the bow to fire the second. To grasp this profound shift in perspective, let us use a classic and powerful metaphor. Imagine that your truest self, your fundamental awareness, is like a vast, open, and brilliant blue sky. It is, by its very nature, spacious, clear, and full of peace. Its essence is unchanging. Now, imagine that all of your passing mental and emotional events, your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations are like clouds moving through this sky. Some clouds are white, fluffy, and pleasant, like a happy memory or a feeling of joy. Other clouds are dark and heavy, like a storm of anxiety, a fog of sadness, or a thundercloud of anger. And many clouds are just thin and wispy, barely noticeable as they drift by. For most of our lives, we make a fundamental mistake. We forget that we are the sky. We believe that we are the clouds. When a dark storm cloud of anxiety fills our awareness, we contract our entire identity around it and say, I am anxious. When a cloud of anger appears, we say, I am angry. We become the weather. We forget the vast, peaceful sky that is holding the weather. The practice of becoming the silent watcher is the practice of remembering that you are the sky. It is learning to rest in your sky-like nature, allowing all the clouds, both beautiful and stormy, to arise, to pass through your awareness, and to dissolve on their own, without resistance and without clinging. The sky is never harmed by even the most violent storm. Its vast, peaceful nature remains untouched. Your fundamental awareness is the same. So, how do we practically apply this? How do we shift from being the cloud to being the sky? A simple and powerful technique used in many mindfulness traditions is called mental noting or labeling. It is the art of giving a soft, gentle, one-word label to whatever experience arises in your awareness. It is a very light touch. When you feel the familiar knot of anxiety in your stomach, instead of getting caught in the story of the anxiety, you can just gently note in your mind, anxiety, anxiety. When you notice your mind has drifted off into planning your week, you can just note, planning, planning. If you hear a sound, you can note, hearing, hearing. If you feel a dull ache in your shoulder, you can note, aching, aching, or more simply, sensation, sensation. End quote. It is absolutely crucial to understand the purpose and the tone of this practice. You are not labeling in order to analyze or to judge. You are not a scientist classifying a specimen for dissection. You are more like a gentle librarian, quietly stamping each book as it passes your desk. The tone should be one of complete neutrality and kindness. It is a soft, internal whisper of recognition. The purpose of this noting is profound. It creates a space between the observer and the observed. When you are lost in anger, you are the anger. But when you can step back just enough to say, this is anger, you are no longer the anger. You are the one who is aware of the anger. You have transformed the experience from a subjective state that has possessed you into an objective event that you are witnessing. The thought, I am anxious, is a statement of identity. The mental note anxiety is a statement of observation. This subtle shift is the beginning of all freedom. It is the moment you step out of the storm cloud and remember that you are the sky. This space that is created by non-judgmental observation is the space where peace is found. It is a buffer zone, a quiet clearing that protects you from the raw intensity of your own mental states. The anger may still be present as a form of energy in the body, but because you are not adding the fuel of judgment or storytelling, it will burn itself out much more quickly. The anxiety may still arise, but you are not fusing with it, not believing its catastrophic stories. You are allowing it to be a cloud passing through the vast sky of your awareness. From this position of the silent watcher, you can hold your own pain with a deep and gentle compassion. You can be with your fear without becoming the fear. This is the difference between being tossed about in the middle of a raging river and sitting peacefully on the riverbank, watching the water flow by. You are still present with the river. You see it all, but you are not swept away by it. This capacity to watch your own mind without judgment is your birthright. It is the innate power of pure awareness that lies at the core of your being. It has been there all along, often obscured by the relentless noise of the judging mind. By cultivating the silent watcher, you are not creating something new. You are simply returning to your true nature. You are learning to be the spacious, accepting, and peaceful sky, rather than the fleeting and turbulent weather. As you lie awake in the quiet of the night, you have a perfect laboratory to practice this. When a thought arises, watch it. When a feeling arises, watch it. When a sensation arises, watch it. Meet everything you find within yourself, not with a sword of judgment, but with the soft, unbreakable shield of a silent, watchful, and loving awareness. This is the very essence of mindfulness. It is the heart of the path to a mind that is truly and lastingly at peace. We have cultivated the quiet space of silence, and in that space, we have begun to practice the art of the silent watcher, observing our inner world without the immediate reflex of judgment. This practice is the training ground for one of the most practical and liberating teachings offered by the Buddha, a teaching that provides a clear and compassionate roadmap for reducing our own suffering. It is the parable of the two arrows. This teaching does not promise a life free from pain, but it reveals how we can stop adding unnecessary layers of anguish on top of the pain that life inevitably brings. It shows us the crucial difference between pain and suffering, and it places the power to end our suffering firmly back into our own hands. The Buddha once posed a question to his students. He asked them to consider an ordinary person, someone untrained in the ways of wisdom. When this person is walking through the world, they are struck by an arrow. What do they feel? They feel a physical pain, a sharp, unpleasant sensation from the piercing of the flesh. This is unavoidable. But what happens next in the mind of this ordinary person? They immediately begin to grieve and despair. They cry out, "Why was I struck? This is terrible. What have I done to deserve this?" They become consumed by resistance to the pain, by fear about its consequences, by resentment that it happened at all. The Buddha explained that this reaction is like being struck by a second arrow, right in the very same wound. Now, consider a wise person, a student of the path. When this person is struck by the first arrow, they too feel the very same physical pain. They are not superhuman. They are not immune to the pains of the body. The first arrow hurts just as much. But here is the crucial difference. The wise person does not mentally fire a second arrow into themselves. They do not add the layers of resistance, the stories of victimhood, the catastrophic thinking, or the mental anguish on top of the physical pain. And so, the Buddha concluded, the ordinary person feels the pain of two arrows, while the wise person feels the pain of only one. The path of wisdom is not about learning to dodge all of life's first arrows. It is about learning to put down our own bow and stop shooting the second. This distinction between the two arrows is not an abstract philosophy. It is a moment-to-moment description of our lives. The first arrows are the raw, unavoidable discomforts of human existence. A sudden headache is a first arrow. Being spoken to unkindly is a first arrow. Your car breaking down is a first arrow. These are unpleasant events, the direct impact of reality. The second arrows are our reactions to these events. They are the stories we tell, the judgments we make, the resistance we create. The first arrow of the headache is simply a physical sensation. The second arrow is the thought, "This is ruining my day. I'll never get my work done. This is a nightmare." The first arrow of an unkind word is the immediate, sharp feeling of being hurt. The second arrow is, "That person hates me. I must have done something wrong. I am unlikable." The first arrow is a simple fact. The second arrow is our interpretation of that fact. And it is this interpretation, this second arrow, that causes the vast majority of our suffering. Now let us bring this teaching into the quiet laboratory of a sleepless night and examine it with forensic clarity. What, precisely, is the first arrow of insomnia? Lie still and investigate it as a silent watcher. The first arrow is simply a collection of raw, physical sensations. It might be a feeling of warmth or heat in the body. It might be a tingling or buzzing energy in your hands or feet. It might be the sound and feeling of your own heart beating. It might be a sense of pressure behind the eyes. These are just physical energies, pure sensations. If you can stay with them without judging them, you might find that while they may be unpleasant, they are, in and of themselves, bearable. This collection of raw physical data is the first arrow. Now, observe what the mind does next. Upon feeling the impact of this first arrow, the mind immediately reaches into its quiver and begins to fire a relentless volley of second arrows. The first is often the arrow of judgment. This is bad. This is wrong. I should be asleep. Then comes the arrow of catastrophic future-telling. Tomorrow is going to be a total disaster. I won't be able to function at my meeting. I will be exhausted and miserable. This is followed by the arrow of resistance. I hate this feeling. I can't stand it. I have to make it stop. Then perhaps the arrow of identity. I am a bad sleeper. I am an insomniac. This is just who I am. It will never change. And maybe even the arrow of comparison and resentment. Everyone else in the world is sleeping peacefully. Why me? It's not fair. It is this barrage of self-inflicted second arrows that transforms the mere discomfort of being awake into the full-blown agony and panic of a sleepless night. The suffering does not come from the tingling energy in your legs. It comes from the story you tell yourself that this tingling is a catastrophe. The first arrow is discomfort. The second, third, fourth, and fifth arrows are suffering. Here we can see the profound power of the practices we have been cultivating. The practice of becoming the silent watcher is the very training that allows us to not fire the second arrow. Mindfulness creates a sacred pause. It creates a small but crucial gap in time between the impact of the first arrow and the automatic, conditioned reaction of firing the second. In that pause, we have a choice. In that moment of clear seeing, when you feel the raw sensation of wakefulness arise, you can recognize it simply as sensation. You can feel it in the body, anchor yourself with the breath, and choose not to launch into the story. You can choose to simply be with the reality of the first arrow without adding the poison of the second. This does not mean you will magically start to like the sensation. The point is not to pretend that pain is pleasure. The point is to have the courage and wisdom to bear what is unavoidable, without multiplying your own pain 100-fold through your mental reactions. The pain of one arrow is manageable. The suffering that comes from an entire quiver's worth of self-inflicted arrows is what becomes overwhelming and exhausting. When you can stay with the raw data of the first arrow, you will find that it is, like everything else, impermanent. It changes, it shifts, it ebbs and flows. But when you are caught in the story of the second arrow, it feels eternal and solid. This teaching is one of immense empowerment. It moves us from a position of helpless victimhood to one of profound responsibility for our own peace of mind. We cannot control all the first arrows that life will send our way. We will all experience loss, sickness, and discomfort. But the second arrow is always in our own hand. Its bowstring is our own mind. We have the power, in any given moment, to choose not to draw it back. The path to peace is not about building an impenetrable shield that will stop all of life's pains. It is about the simple, courageous, and deeply compassionate act of laying down our own weapon. It is the practice of learning to suffer less, not by changing the world, but by changing our own relationship to it, choosing to bear the pain of one arrow with grace, rather than tormenting ourselves with two. We have learned to observe our own minds, to witness our thoughts and feelings without judgment. We have explored the profound teaching of the two arrows, seeing how we often inflict the majority of our own suffering through our reactions to life's painful events. This deep dive into our personal, inner world can sometimes feel isolating, as if we are a lone scientist examining a private universe of pain. But the next step on our journey requires us to zoom out, to radically shift our perspective from the microscope to the telescope. We will now explore a teaching that has the power to dissolve the very foundation of loneliness. It is the wisdom of interconnectedness, the understanding that the feeling of being a separate, isolated self, struggling alone in the dark, is a profound illusion. In the rich imagery of the Mahayana Buddhist tradition, there is a beautiful and mind-expanding metaphor for the nature of reality. It is known as Indra's net. Imagine a vast cosmic net that stretches out infinitely in all directions, through all of space and time. At every point where the threads of this net cross, there hangs a single, perfectly clear, multifaceted jewel. The net is structured in such a way that if you were to look closely at the polished surface of any one of these infinite jewels, you would see reflected in it every other jewel in the entire net. And not only that, but within each of those reflections, you would see the reflections of all the other jewels, and so on, into an endless, holographic cascade of light and connection. Each individual jewel is distinct and unique, yet its entire existence and brilliance are defined by its relationship to all the others. If you were to touch one jewel, you would cause every other jewel in the net to tremble. The existence of one jewel contains the existence of the entire net. The ancient texts tell us that this net is reality, and each one of you's very person, every animal, every tree, every drop of water, every single thought is one of these jewels. This is not just a beautiful piece of poetry. It is a pointer to one of the most fundamental teachings of the Buddha, a doctrine called pratitya samutpad, or dependent origination. The great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh gave this concept a simple, beautiful name that we can all understand: interbeing. Interbeing means that nothing has a separate, independent self. Everything in the universe is made of everything else. To be is to interbe. To illustrate this, he would often invite his students to look deeply at a simple sheet of paper. On the surface, a sheet of paper seems like a solid, separate object. But if we look with the eyes of interbeing, we see something different. We see that for this paper to exist, there must first be a tree. For the tree to exist, there must be the sun, the rain, the soil, and the air. So, the sun, the rain, and the earth are all present right here in this sheet of paper. Then, we need a logger to cut down the tree. This means the logger is in the paper, and so are his parents who gave birth to him, the food that gave him strength, and the entire chain of causes and conditions that led to his existence. Then we need the paper mill, the truck driver who transported the paper, the person who sold it. Their existence, their lives, their efforts are all embedded in this simple sheet. When we look deeply enough, we see that the paper is made entirely of non-paper elements. If we were to remove the sun, the clouds, the logger, the soil, the paper would cease to exist. It has no separate self. It is a temporary manifestation of the entire universe. Now, turn this same deep looking upon yourself. You, too, are made entirely of non-you elements. You are made of the sun, the air, the water, and the earth. You are made of the food you have eaten, and therefore of the farmers who grew it, and the truckers who transported it. You are made of your parents, your ancestors, your teachers, your friends. You are made of every idea you have ever encountered, every conversation you have ever had, every kindness you have ever received. If you were to remove all these non-you elements, there would be nothing left. Like the jewel in Indra's net, your very existence is a reflection of, and is dependent upon, the entire universe. How does this profound truth help us as we lie awake in the middle of the night, wrestling with our own mind? It helps by completely reframing the nature of our worries. The anxieties that feel so intensely personal and private are, in fact, not personal at all. That knot of worry in your stomach about a deadline at work is not just your worry. It is connected to the entire economic system, to the culture of productivity we live in, to the expectations of your boss and colleagues, to their own anxieties about their roles. The fear you feel for a sick family member is not your private pain. It is the manifestation of love and connection, a testament to the fact that their well-being is inseparable from your own. The vague, existential dread you may feel about the state of the world is not a sign of your own brokenness. It is a sign of your sensitivity and your deep connection to the entire human family. Your anxieties are not a private failing. They are proof of your membership in the jeweled net. They are evidence that you are connected. This understanding is the direct antidote to the cold, sharp pain of isolation. When you are awake at 3 in the morning, the mind tells a powerful story of loneliness. I am the only one going through this. Everyone else is sleeping peacefully. I am alone in my struggle. This story is a lie. The teaching of interbeing invites you to feel the truth. At this very moment, in this vast interconnected net, countless other jewels are also shimmering with wakefulness. A new mother across town is awake, cradling a restless child. A student on the other side of the world is awake, cramming for an exam, his heart pounding with anxiety. A doctor is awake after a long and difficult shift, her mind replaying the events of the day. A soldier is awake in a distant land, thinking of home. You are not, and you have never been, alone in your suffering. The frequency of your pain is a shared human frequency. Your struggle is our struggle. Your breath is our breath. When this realization moves from being an intellectual idea to a felt reality in the heart, something miraculous is born: true compassion. The word for compassion in the Pali language is karuna. It is often described as the trembling or quivering of the heart in response to seeing suffering. It is a deep empathy, combined with the sincere wish for that suffering to be relieved. When we are trapped in the illusion of a separate self, our primary question is, why is this happening to me? It is a question that leads to resentment and victimhood. But when we understand into being, the question shifts. We see our own pain and realize, this is the nature of suffering. This is what it feels like. And then, we realize that this is what others feel too. Our heart trembles for our own pain, and in the very same moment, it trembles for the pain of all others caught in the same struggle. The wall between my suffering and your suffering dissolves. This is karuna. It is a boundless tender-heartedness that holds both our own pain and the pain of the world with an equal and unconditional love. To see yourself as a jewel in Indra's net is to understand that your healing is never just for you. Every time you meet your own anxiety with a moment of mindfulness, every time you choose not to fire a second arrow, every time you touch your own pain with the warmth of metta, you send a gentle, healing tremor throughout the entire net. Your peace contributes to the peace of the world. Your healing contributes to the healing of the world. The cold illusion of the separate self is one of the primary sources of our fear and anxiety. By dissolving this illusion in the warm, all-encompassing light of interbeing, we find not only a profound connection to all of life, but a deep and lasting reason for our own journey toward peace. We are, all of us, in this together, and our individual actions, our thoughts, and our intentions ripple out in ways we can scarcely imagine. We have seen ourselves not as isolated islands, but as interconnected jewels in the vast and shimmering net of Indra. This understanding of interbeing reveals a profound truth. Our actions are never performed in a vacuum. Every thought, word, and deed sends a tremor through the entire net, affecting both ourselves and others. This leads us directly to one of the most widely known, yet deeply misunderstood, concepts in Eastern philosophy, karma. In the West, the word karma has often been misinterpreted as a synonym for fate, or as a kind of cosmic bookkeeping system of reward and punishment. But its original meaning is far more simple, practical, and empowering. The word karma, or karma in the Pali language, literally means action or volition. It is the natural, impersonal law of cause and effect. It is no more mystical than the law of gravity. It simply states that every volitional action has a corresponding result. Our actions are causes, and our life experiences are the effects. And most importantly, the most powerful and consequential actions we perform are the ones that take place in the silent, invisible workshop of our own mind. To understand how this works, it is helpful to use the metaphor of the mind as a garden. Imagine that your deepest consciousness is a vast and fertile field. Every action you perform throughout the day, driven by intention, is like planting a seed in this garden. The quality of the seed is determined by the intention behind the action. Actions motivated by greed, hatred, aversion, and delusion are like planting the seeds of thorny bushes, bitter weeds, and poisonous plants. Actions motivated by generosity, loving kindness, compassion, and wisdom are like planting the seeds of fragrant flowers, nourishing vegetables, and magnificent, fruit-bearing trees. Once planted, these seeds do not disappear. They settle into the deep soil of our consciousness, where they wait for the right conditions to sprout. The fruit they eventually bear, the harvest we reap, is our very experience of the world of moods, our perceptions, our happiness, and our suffering. Now, let us look at the experience of a restless, anxious night through this lens. When you are lying in bed, your mind a chaotic storm of fear, frustration, and negativity, it is easy to feel like a victim of a random, senseless attack. But the law of karma suggests that this storm is not random at all. It is a harvest. The difficult, painful experience of the night is the direct flowering of the seeds we have been planting during the day, and on all the days that came before. Think about the small, often unconscious, actions of a typical day. If we spend our morning commute consumed with anger and frustration at another driver, we plant a seed of ill will. If we engage in harmful gossip about a colleague at work, we plant a seed of negative speech. If we spend hours mindlessly scrolling through frightening news articles or agitating social media feeds, we are planting hundreds of seeds of fear, comparison, and restlessness. If we unwind in the evening by watching violent or disturbing entertainment, we are watering the seeds of agitation in our garden. Then, when night comes, and we turn off all the external lights and distractions, we are left alone in our inner garden. And what begins to grow in the dark? The thorny bushes of our anger, the bitter weeds of our resentment, the creeping vines of our anxiety. The chaotic state of our mind at night is not a new problem that begins when our head hits the pillow. It is simply the ripening of the fruit from the seeds we have been diligently, if unconsciously, planting all day long. This understanding is not meant to inspire guilt or blame. Its purpose is the opposite. It is meant to empower us, because if we are the ones who have planted the garden, then we are also the ones who have the power to change it. We are not the victims of the garden, we are its gardeners. This is the hopeful and liberating heart of the teaching of karma. The state of our garden right now is the result of past actions, but its future state is determined by the actions we are choosing to perform in this very moment. We have the power, right now, to start planting different seeds. Every time we choose to take a mindful breath, instead of reacting with anger, we plant a flower of patience. Every time we offer a kind word to someone, or to ourselves, we plant a seed of loving kindness. Every time we choose to turn away from a piece of agitating media and instead read something that is calming or inspiring, we are consciously choosing to cultivate a garden of peace. And most powerfully, the very practice of mindfulness itself is a profound act of karma. Think about the process we have been exploring. You are resting your attention on your breath. Your mind wanders into an anxious thought. There is a moment of recognition, the moment of mindfulness. In that instant, you have a choice. You can continue to follow the anxious thought, watering that weed, strengthening its roots, making it more likely to grow again in the future. Or you can make a different choice. You can gently, without judgment, guide your attention back to the breath. In that simple, quiet, and profoundly powerful moment of return, you have performed a wholesome karmic action. You have refused to water the weed of anxiety, and you have instead chosen to plant and water the flower of mindfulness, of peace, of stability. Each time you do this, you are actively reshaping the landscape of your mind, moment by moment. You are creating the causes and conditions for a future harvest of peace. Perhaps the most dramatic illustration of this power to change our karma is the story of the infamous murderer, Angulimala. His name meant he of the finger garland, because he wore a gruesome necklace made from the fingers of his many victims. He was the terror of the countryside. One day, he saw the Buddha walking calmly and alone, and decided to make him his next victim. Angulimala, a strong and fast man, began to run after him, but a strange thing happened. Although the Buddha was only walking at a normal pace, Angulimala could not catch him. Exhausted and frustrated, he finally shouted, "Stop, holy man, stop!" The Buddha, without turning, replied, "I have already stopped, Angulimala. It is you who have not stopped." This enigmatic phrase shattered Angulimala's world. He understood that the Buddha meant he had stopped creating the karma of violence. He had stopped running on the endless wheel of causing harm. In that moment of insight, Angulimala threw down his weapons and asked to become a student. Despite the horrific karma he had created in his past, he was accepted into the monastic order. Through incredibly diligent and difficult practice, he faced the consequences of his actions, purified his mind, and eventually became a fully enlightened saint, a revered arhat. The story of Angulimala is the ultimate teaching that we are not prisoners of our past. Our karma is not fate. It is not a fixed destiny written in stone. It is a living, dynamic process that is being created and recreated in every single moment by our own choices. The state of our mind tonight is a result, but our intention, right now, in this moment, is a cause. We can continue to unconsciously sow the seeds of agitation and fear, or we can begin the gentle, patient, and deeply rewarding work of cultivating a garden of peace. You are the gardener. The seeds are in your hand, and the time for planting is always, and only, now. We have come to understand that we are the gardeners of our own mind, that our intentional actions, our karma, shape the reality we experience. We have seen that we have the power to plant new seeds of peace and mindfulness in any given moment. This naturally leads to a crucial question. What is the right way to practice? What is the proper quality of effort to apply to this inner work? If we try too hard, we create tension. If we don't try at all, we fall back into old habits. The wisdom of the Buddha offers a clear guide for navigating this challenge, a principle that lies at the very heart of his teachings. It is the principle of the middle path. When first taught, this path was presented as a rejection of the two extremes of lifestyle the Buddha himself had experienced. The extreme of indulging in every sensual pleasure, and the opposite extreme of harsh, self-mortifying asceticism. But the middle path is far more than a lifestyle guide. It is a subtle, profound, and moment-to-moment instruction for balancing the energies of our own mind, especially in the delicate and challenging practice of finding peace on a sleepless night. To truly understand this principle, we can turn to the story of a monk named Sona. Before becoming a monk, Sona had been born into a wealthy family and was said to be so delicate that fine hairs grew on the soles of his feet. He was inspired by the Buddha's teaching and decided to devote himself to the path with ferocious intensity. He practiced walking meditation with such extreme effort that his delicate feet cracked and bled, staining the monastery grounds with his blood. Yet, despite his heroic striving, his mind was no closer to peace. He was agitated, exhausted, and filled with frustration. He became deeply discouraged, thinking to himself, "I have given up a life of luxury and applied myself with such vigor, yet I have gained nothing. Perhaps this path is not for me. I should return to my old life and enjoy my wealth." The Buddha, possessing the ability to know the minds of others, understood Sona's despair. He appeared before the discouraged monk and asked him, "Sona, is it true that before you became a monk, you were skilled in playing the lute?" Sona admitted that he was. The Buddha then asked a series of simple questions. "Tell me, Sona, what happens when the strings of your lute are tuned too tightly?" Sona replied, "Venerable sir, if the strings are too tight, they will snap, and the lute will produce a harsh, unpleasant sound before becoming unplayable." "And what happens," the Buddha continued, "if the strings are too loose?" "If the strings are too loose," Sona said, "they will not produce any sound at all." "And how, Sona," the Buddha asked, "do you produce a beautiful, resonant, and harmonious sound from your lute?" Sona answered, "To do that, Venerable sir, the strings must be tuned just right. They must be neither too tight nor too loose, but balanced in a state of equilibrium." The Buddha then looked at Sona with great kindness and said, "In the very same way, Sona, the practice of the spiritual path works. If your effort is too intense, it leads to restlessness and agitation. If your effort is too lax, it leads to laziness and dullness. You must tune the instrument of your own mind with this same wisdom. Find the middle way between the extremes, and you will discover the beautiful music of peace." This ancient story is a perfect map for the challenges we face when we try to apply mindfulness on a difficult night. We often fall into one of two extremes, tightening the strings until they snap, or letting them go so slack they become useless. The first extreme is the path of excessive, forceful effort. This is the mind that is striving for sleep, straining for peace, trying too hard to meditate correctly. When you focus on the breath, you try to control it, to force it to be slow and deep. When a thought arises, you get angry with yourself, tightening your mental muscles to push it away. This approach is born from a good intention, but it is deeply misguided. It is like tightening the lute string. The result is not peace, but more tension, more anxiety, more restlessness. The mind becomes a battlefield of striving and frustration. The string snaps. The second extreme is the path of excessive laxity, of giving up. This happens when we become discouraged by the first extreme, or when we are simply overcome by fatigue. We let the string go completely slack. In this state, the mind sinks into a heavy, foggy, unconscious dullness. This is the hindrance of sloth and torpor we spoke of earlier. It is crucial to understand that this dull, drowsy state is not the same as restful, restorative peace. It is a murky, swamp-like state of mind, devoid of clarity, wisdom, or awareness. It is a heavy, dreamless unconsciousness, not a bright and peaceful presence. This is the sound of the overly loose string, a dull thud, or no sound at all. The middle path, then, is the art of tuning the instrument of your mind to a state of relaxed alertness. These two words are the key. The relaxed quality comes from the wisdom of acceptance and letting go. It is the part of us that says, "It is okay that I am awake. I will not fight this moment." It is the open hand, the gentle heart. The alertness quality comes from the gentle and consistent application of mindfulness. It is the part of us that remembers to watch the breath, that notices when the mind has wandered, that remains present with our experience. The body is at ease, but the mind is bright and clear. We are not tense and striving, nor are we dull and checked out. We are resting in a state of beautiful, poised equilibrium, like a perfectly tuned string, ready to resonate with the truth of the moment. This is a dynamic balancing act, a constant and subtle interplay between the wholesome application of effort and the wise practice of letting go. The middle path is not a path of no effort. It takes effort to remember to be mindful. It takes effort to gently return the mind to the breath when it wanders. It takes effort to generate a feeling of loving kindness. This is known in Buddhism as right effort, but this wise effort is not the effort of forcing or straining. It is the effort of remembering, of returning, of applying a gentle and persistent attention, and this effort must always be balanced by a profound letting go of the outcome. We apply the gentle effort to be present with our breath, but we completely release our attachment to what happens as a result. We let go of the goal of falling asleep. We let go of the goal of having a perfectly silent mind. We release all goals, and instead, place our entire attention on the quality of our presence in this moment. We care deeply about the process, and we are radically unconcerned with the product. This is the secret to tuning the lute. You hold the string with just enough tension to create a clear, beautiful note that is the effort of mindfulness. But you hold it with enough softness and release that it is free to vibrate, to resonate, to sing. That is the wisdom of letting go. The spiritual life is not a forced march, nor is it a lazy, aimless drift. It is the refined and sensitive art of learning to play the precious instrument of your own mind and body. It requires patience. It requires you to listen carefully to the feedback you are receiving. Is the note too sharp and tight? Loosen the string with more acceptance. Is the note dull and lifeless? Tighten the string with a bit more gentle attention. By walking this middle path, you discover that peace is not a distant trophy to be won through brute force, nor is it a matter of luck. It is the beautiful, harmonious music that arises naturally when you learn to tune your own being with wisdom, sensitivity, and exquisite care. We have learned to tune the instrument of our mind, walking the middle path between the extremes of striving and laxity. We have found a state of relaxed alertness. Now, with this finely tuned instrument, we are ready to approach one of the most profound and transformative inquiries of the spiritual path. We are ready to ask the question, who exactly is this I that is doing the practicing? Who is this self that feels anxious, that seeks peace, that lies awake at night? We assume there is a solid, continuous entity at the center of our experience, a me who is the thinker of the thoughts and the feeler of the feelings. The Buddha's most radical and liberating teaching, known as anatta or no self, invites us to question this assumption directly. This teaching can, at first, sound frightening or nihilistic, as if it is denying our very existence, but its true purpose is the opposite. It is not a path to annihilation, but the doorway to ultimate freedom, a release from the heaviest burden we carry. From the moment we are born, we begin the lifelong project of constructing a self. We build a fortress, and we call it me. The foundation of this fortress is our name. Its walls are built from our memories, our beliefs, our opinions, our accomplishments, and our failures. We furnish it with our possessions, our relationships, and our social roles: parent, worker, friend, citizen. And deep inside this fortress, there sits a nervous and vigilant king or ego. The full-time, round-the-clock job of this king is to protect and defend the fortress of me at all costs. This ceaseless work of defense is the source of so much of our anxiety. The king paces the ramparts at night, worrying, are the walls of my fortress high enough? Am I successful enough? Am I smart enough? He anxiously checks the opinions of the neighboring kingdoms. What do they think of me? Is my reputation secure? He sees every criticism, every slight, every challenge as a potential invader at the gates. The sleepless night is often nothing more than the king of the ego, in a state of high alert, obsessively patrolling the perimeter, scanning for threats to its fragile and fabricated kingdom. The immense effort required to maintain and defend this fortress is what leaves us feeling so utterly exhausted. The wisdom of anatta offers us a way to step outside of this fortress entirely. There is a story from the ancient Taoist sage, Zhuangzi, that perfectly illustrates the practical relief this perspective can bring. Imagine you are rowing a small boat across a river on a misty morning. The world is quiet and still. Suddenly, out of the mist, another boat collides with yours with a jarring thud. If you look up and see a person in that other boat, your immediate reaction will likely be anger. You will feel wronged, your space violated. You might shout, "Hey, watch where you're going. Are you blind?" You create a story of a careless other who has harmed you. Your peace is shattered. Now, imagine the very same scene. You are in your boat, the mist is on the water, and a boat collides with yours. But this time when you look up, you see that the other boat is empty. It has simply come loose from its moorings upstream and has been carried into your path by the impersonal currents of the river. What is your reaction now? There is no anger. There is no one to blame. There is no feeling of personal offense. You simply accept the situation, pick up your oar, push the empty boat gently away, and continue on your journey. The event is the same, but your suffering is absent. Zhuangzi's profound insight is this: the boat was always empty. Our anger, our suffering, comes from our projection of a solid self onto the situation. The teaching of anatta is the practice of learning to see that all of life's collisions, the criticisms, the difficulties, the misfortunes are, in their essence, empty boats. They are impersonal phenomena arising from the vast, interconnected web of causes and conditions. So, if there is no solid king in the fortress, what are we? The Buddha invites us to become scientists of our own experience, to turn the light of awareness inward and investigate what this self is actually made of. When we do, he suggests we will find not a solid entity, but a dynamic, flowing process, a combination of 5 changing aspects, known as the 5 aggregates or skandhas. The first is form a physical body. Look closely. Is this body a solid, unchanging me? Of course not. It is in a constant state of flux, made entirely of non-body elements like the food we have eaten, the air we have breathed, the water we have drunk. It changes from moment to moment. It ages. It gets sick. It is an unreliable and impermanent process, not a solid self. The second is feeling. This refers to the pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral tones of our experience. Are these feelings me? They are as fleeting as the weather, changing with every sound, every thought, every memory. To build an identity on something so fickle would be to build a house on shifting sand. The third is perception. This is the faculty of recognition and labeling. Blue, cold, chair, sadness. Is this labeling process the real me? It is simply a mental function, like a computer processing data. The fourth aggregate is mental formations. This is a broad category that includes all our habits, our opinions, our beliefs, our moods, our intentions, and our memories. This is the closest thing to what we normally think of as our personality. But if we look closely, we see that all of these are conditioned. We learned our opinions. Our beliefs change. Our moods are notoriously unstable. Our habits can be reshaped. These are not a solid intrinsic core, but rather patterns of energy that have been created by past causes. The fifth and final aggregate is consciousness. This is the raw faculty of knowing, the awareness that cognizes the other 4 aggregates. It is the seeing of a sight, the hearing of a sound, the knowing of a thought. But is this consciousness the ultimate me? The Buddha pointed out that consciousness is also dependent. It does not exist on its own. Seeing consciousness arises only when there is an eye and a form. Hearing consciousness arises only when there is an ear and a sound. It is not a standalone soul or spirit, but another part of a dynamic, interconnected process. After conducting this thorough investigation, after looking in every corner of our experience, we come to a startling conclusion. We cannot find a self. There is no permanent, independent owner of the house. The self is not a noun, it is a verb. It is a process of these 5 aggregates coming together, interacting, and creating the impression of a solid self. Just as the individual frames of a film create the impression of a continuous movie. This is the truth of anatta. This realization is not a cause for fear. It is the ultimate liberation. If there is no fixed, solid self to defend, then the anxious king in the fortress can finally abdicate his throne. The exhausting lifelong job of protecting my reputation, defending my opinions, and upholding my ego can finally be laid down. The burden of being me is lifted. When we are no longer attached to a rigid idea of who we are, we can become infinitely more flexible, resilient, and playful. We can stop being a brittle statue, terrified of being chipped or broken, and become like a flowing river, able to adapt and move gracefully around any obstacle. When the empty boats of life collide with us, we no longer take it personally. There is no solid me to be offended. There is just the impersonal unfolding of life. We can push the boat gently away and continue on our journey with a lighter heart, a clearer mind, and the profound freedom that comes from knowing that our true nature is as vast, open, and undefended as the sky itself. We have journeyed deep into the inner landscape of the mind. We have explored the profound truths of impermanence, the interconnected web of being, the nature of karma, the wisdom of the middle path, and the liberating insight of no self. These are not mere philosophical concepts. They are powerful lenses that can radically transform our perception of reality and our relationship with our own suffering. The great challenge, however, is to bring this wisdom down from the mountain peak of understanding and into the lived reality of our everyday lives. How do we translate these liberating truths into a language our nervous system can understand? How do we create a structure in our day that supports this profound inner shift? The answer lies in the gentle, intentional, and transformative power of ritual. Specifically, we will now explore how to create a sacred pause, an evening ritual designed to consciously and skillfully guide our mind from the world of doing into the sacred world of being. Our minds and bodies are creatures of rhythm and habit. We cannot expect to sprint at full speed all day answering emails, solving problems, navigating traffic, consuming a constant stream of stimulating information, and then simply switch off a button and fall into a deep, peaceful slumber. The mind does not have an off switch. It has a dimmer switch. It needs a period of gradual deceleration, a gentle landing strip to transition from the high-altitude flight of the day to the quiet stillness of the ground. Think of a great ship approaching a harbor. Miles out at sea, the captain doesn't just cut the engines. He slowly reduces the power, allowing the vessel's immense momentum to gradually dissipate until it can glide smoothly and safely into its dock. An evening ritual is this process of slowly cutting the engines of the mind. It is a sequence of simple, calming actions that sends a clear and consistent signal to our entire being. The time for striving and activity is over. The time for rest and surrender is beginning. By creating this buffer zone, we are working with our own nature, not against it. We are compassionately acknowledging that peace is not a state we can force, but one we must gently and patiently invite. In the disciplined and peaceful environment of a monastery, daily life is structured by a clear and predictable rhythm. There are set times for meditation, for work, for study, and for rest. And the transitions between these different activities are often marked by the sound of a bell. When the deep, resonant tone of the monastery bell rings out, it is not merely a signal that it is time for the next scheduled event. It is a call to mindfulness. It is an invitation to stop whatever one is doing, to take a breath, and to be fully present with the ending of one activity and the beginning of another. The bell that calls the monks from their work in the vegetable garden is a sound that invites them to let go of the earth, the tools, and the concerns of growing food. The bell that calls them to the meditation hall is an invitation to enter a space of noble silence and inner work. This bell creates a sacred boundary in time. Our own evening ritual can serve as our personal monastery bell. It is the sound that we consciously create to signal to ourselves that we are now leaving the work of the day behind. We are stepping across a threshold, out of the noisy marketplace of the world and into the quiet temple of the night. So what might this sacred pause, this personal ritual, look like? It is not a rigid prescription, but a creative and personal process. You can choose from a menu of simple practices, crafting a sequence that feels nourishing and authentic to you. The first and perhaps most important step is what we have called the digital sunset. At least 1 hour, and ideally 90 minutes, before you plan to be asleep, make a conscious decision to turn off all screens. This is a non-negotiable act of self-care. It is the moment you unplug from the chaotic, agitating global mind and begin the process of plugging into your own inner world. Once the screens are off, you can begin to engage your senses in a calming way. You might prepare a warm, caffeine-free herbal tea, like chamomile, lavender, or mint. The act of preparing the tea itself can be a meditation, and the warmth of the cup in your hands is inherently soothing. You could light a candle with a calming scent, or use an essential oil diffuser. The sense of smell has a powerful and direct connection to the memory and emotion centers of the brain. A calming aroma can act as a potent signal for relaxation. You might also choose to put on some very soft, gentle, instrumental music, or you might simply choose to embrace the gift of quiet. The next step is to find a way to gently unburden the mind. A powerful practice for this is journaling. This is not about writing a masterpiece. It is about externalizing your inner world. One effective technique is the worry dump. Take a notebook and for 5 or 10 minutes, write down everything that is troubling you, everything your mind is spinning on. Get it all out of your head and onto the paper. This act can provide immense relief. It is as if you are telling the anxious part of your brain, I have heard you. Your concerns have been logged. You do not need to keep shouting them at me all night. An alternative, or addition, to this is to keep a gratitude journal. At the end of the day, take a few moments to write down 3 to 5 things, no matter how small, for which you are grateful. This practice actively counteracts the mind's natural negativity bias and cultivates a state of appreciation and contentment before sleep. After unburdening the mind, you might choose to read from a physical book, not a backlit screen. Choose your reading material wisely. This is not the time for a gripping thriller or a complex work of non-fiction. This is a time for what you might call wisdom literature, a book of poetry, a spiritual text, a work of gentle philosophy. Allow the words to be a balm for your soul, something that inspires a sense of peace, wonder, or perspective, rather than something that stimulates more frantic thinking. A few slow, gentle stretches can also be a beautiful way to release the physical tension that has accumulated in the body throughout the day. This is not a workout. It is a slow, mindful conversation with your body, breathing into any areas of tightness and gently inviting them to release. Finally, we must consider the space itself. The brain is an association machine. If your bedroom is also your office, your movie theater, and your dining room, your brain receives a confusing mix of signals when you enter it. It doesn't know whether it should be working, getting excited, or trying to rest. As much as your living situation allows, dedicate your bedroom to 2 activities, and 2 activities only: sleep and intimacy. This creates a powerful and clear psychological association. When you cross the threshold into your bedroom, It should feel like entering a sanctuary. Keep the room cool, dark, and quiet. Keep it as clean and uncluttered as you can. Your bedroom should be the physical embodiment of the peace you are trying to cultivate. It is your sacred space, your nightly retreat. Creating a ritual like this is not about adding another chore to your already long to-do list. It is about treating your own peace of mind as a sacred priority. It is an act of profound self-respect. It is the way we take our highest intentions for a peaceful life and translate them into concrete, compassionate, and consistent actions. By creating this sacred pause between the day and the night, you are no longer leaving your peace to chance. You are consciously and skillfully creating the causes and conditions for a calm mind and a restful night. You are ringing your own monastery bell, gently calling yourself home to the quiet and healing sanctuary that always awaits you within. We have established the profound importance of the sacred pause, an evening ritual that acts as a gentle transition from the busyness of our day to the quiet sanctuary of the night. This ritual helps us to process and release the energies we have accumulated. But now, we must take a step back and look at the nature of what we are accumulating in the first place. This leads us to the crucial practice of mindful consumption. When we hear the word consumption, we typically think of the food and drink we put into our bodies. We are increasingly aware that a diet of processed, unhealthy food will lead to a feeling of physical sickness and unease. The wisdom of mindfulness asks us to apply this same discerning awareness to everything else we take in, especially to the food we feed our minds. Every piece of news we read, every video we watch, every podcast we listen to, and every conversation we have is a form of mental nourishment or mental poison. And the quality of our mental diet directly determines the health and peace of our inner world. Let us return to the metaphor of the mind as a garden. Your consciousness is the rich, fertile soil, capable of growing anything. And every piece of information you allow into your mind is a seed that you plant in that soil. If you spend your day planting the seeds of thistle, thorns, and poison ivy, you cannot expect to walk into your garden at night and find a serene landscape of fragrant lavender and peaceful lotus flowers. You will find exactly what you have planted, a landscape of sharp, irritating, and toxic growth. What are these thorny seeds? They are the sensationalized news headlines designed to provoke outrage. They are the angry, argumentative comment sections on social media. They are the gossip-filled conversations that denigrate others. They are the violent movies and intensely stressful television shows that flood our nervous system with adrenaline. Each time we consume a piece of content that is rooted in fear, anger, comparison, or despair, we are consciously planting a seed of that very quality within our own mind. Conversely, we can choose to plant the seeds of flowers and nourishing fruits. What are these wholesome seeds? They are the stories of human kindness and resilience that remind us of our better nature. They are the educational podcasts or documentaries that expand our understanding of the world in a constructive way. They are the beautiful pieces of art or music that uplift the human spirit. They are the deep, meaningful conversations that build connection and empathy. They are the simple, profound nourishment that comes from spending quiet time in nature. The law of the garden is simple and unwavering. You will harvest what you plant. If you desire a harvest of inner peace at night, you must spend your day planting the seeds of peace. A restless, anxious mind during the sleepless hours is often not a mysterious affliction. It is the predictable and natural harvest of a day spent consuming a diet of mental junk food. We live in a world where this mental junk food is more abundant and more addictive than ever before. The business model of much of our modern media landscape is not designed to make us wise, peaceful, or even truly informed. It is designed for one primary purpose: to capture and hold our attention. And the most effective way to capture attention is to trigger strong primal emotions. Fear, anger, outrage, and righteous indignation are powerful hooks. Algorithms learn what provokes us and feed us a steady diet of it, because an agitated mind is an engaged mind. An engaged mind is one that keeps scrolling, keeps clicking, and keeps generating revenue. The result is that we are constantly, often unconsciously, consuming a diet that is engineered to make us anxious and reactive. It is the mental equivalent of a diet consisting only of sugar, processed fats, and artificial stimulants. It might provide a momentary rush, a jolt of energy from the outrage or the drama, but its long-term effect is a state of chronic mental and emotional inflammation. It leaves us feeling cynical, fearful, disconnected, and perpetually on edge. So how do we, as the wise gardeners of our own minds, navigate this challenging environment? We begin with the practice of mindful consumption. This is not about censorship or hiding from the realities of the world. It is about moving from a state of unconscious, reactive grazing to one of conscious, intentional nourishment. The first and most powerful tool is the simple act of the pause. before you automatically pick up your phone to scroll through a feed, before you click on that inflammatory headline, before you turn on the television, just stop. Take one single, conscious breath, and in the space of that breath, ask yourself a simple question. What is my intention right now? What am I seeking? Are you seeking genuine information? Are you seeking a feeling of connection? Are you seeking inspiration? Or are you simply seeking a distraction from an uncomfortable feeling? By simply asking the question, you shift from being a passive consumer to an active participant in your own mental life. This pause gives you the power of choice. You might realize that you don't actually need to check the news for the 6th time today, that you already have the essential information you need. You might choose to listen to a piece of beautiful music instead of an angry political podcast during your lunch break. You might decide to put your phone in another room for an hour and read a book instead. This practice of conscious choice is especially vital in the hours leading up to your evening ritual. If you spend the hours from 5 to 8 in the evening consuming agitating content, your sacred pause will have to work much harder to calm your nervous system. By creating a buffer zone of peaceful consumption in the evening, you make the transition to rest much smoother and more natural. Mindful consumption is not just about avoiding the toxic. It is also about actively seeking out the nourishing. We must become the curators of our own mental diet. Take an inventory of your information sources. Unfollow the social media accounts that consistently make you feel inadequate, angry, or anxious. Unsubscribe from the newsletters that rely on clickbait and fear-mongering. Instead, actively seek out sources that nourish you. Find the writers, the artists, the thinkers, and the journalists who are committed to nuance, compassion, and constructive dialogue. Make a list of films that are beautiful and life-affirming. Create a playlist of music that brings you a feeling of calm and spaciousness. When you feel the pull to consume something, you will then have a menu of wholesome options to choose from, rather than defaulting to the junk food offered by the algorithm. This principle extends beyond media and into our daily interactions. The conversations we choose to have are a potent form of mental food. Do we gravitate toward conversations that are centered on complaint, gossip, and criticism? This kind of talk, while momentarily gratifying to the ego, plants seeds of negativity and separation in our garden. Or can we make a conscious effort to steer our conversations toward topics that are more supportive, more curious, more appreciative? Can we ask questions that build empathy? Can we share stories that build connection? By being mindful of our speech, we are taking responsibility for the karmic seeds we plant, not only in our own mind, but in the minds of others as well. We cannot control every piece of information that enters our awareness. We cannot build a wall around our garden that will stop every weed seed from blowing in on the wind. But we have absolute authority over what we choose to plant and what we choose to water. By becoming a mindful consumer, you are no longer a passive victim of the information age. You are an empowered gardener, consciously and lovingly tending to the soil of your own mind. You understand that a peaceful night is not an accident. It is the beautiful, natural harvest that comes from a day spent patiently and intentionally planting the seeds of peace. We have learned to become the wise and careful gardener of our own mind, consciously choosing the seeds of information and experience we plant throughout our day. We have created a sacred evening ritual to help us transition from the world of doing to the world of being. And yet, even in the most beautifully tended garden, storms will arise. Even after the most peaceful evening, we may find ourselves awakened in the dead of night by a sudden, powerful, and unwelcome emotional guest. A wave of raw fear, a surge of anger, a deep pang of grief, or a familiar feeling of shame can appear at our door, uninvited. In these moments, our instinct is to react in one of two ways. We either try to suppress the emotion barricading the door, pretending no one is home, and pushing the feeling down into the darkness, or we are completely consumed by it till we fling the door open and are swept away by the storm, becoming the anger, becoming the fear. The Buddhist path offers a third way, a middle path of profound wisdom and compassion. It is the art of learning to welcome the unwanted guest. There is a story that captures this approach beautifully. Even after his enlightenment, the Buddha was said to be visited by a being named Mara. Mara is the personification of all the forces that oppose peace and freedom. He is temptation, he is fear, he is doubt, he is our inner demon. One evening, as the Buddha was sitting with his attendant, Ananda, he looked up and said, "Ananda, I sense that Mara is coming to visit." Ananda, knowing Mara's reputation, might have become fearful, suggesting they lock the doors or flee. But the Buddha remained calm. He simply said, "Please, prepare a seat for our guest." When the terrifying figure of Mara appeared, radiating fear and negativity, the Buddha did not fight him. He did not ignore him. He simply looked at him with calm recognition and said, "I see you, Mara. Welcome, there is a seat for you here. Please, sit with me. By greeting his own deepest fears with such radical hospitality, by acknowledging their presence and offering them a space to simply be, the Buddha robbed them of their power. What we resist persists and grows stronger in the dark. What we can meet with calm, courageous, and kind awareness begins to lose its hold on us. We must learn to offer a seat to our own Mara, a simple yet profound practice, popularized in our time by the mindfulness teacher Tara Brach, provides a clear and practical way to embody this welcoming attitude. It is a lifeline we can use whenever we feel ourselves drowning in an emotional storm. The practice is summarized by the acronym RAIN. Each letter represents a crucial step in the process of meeting our difficult emotions with wisdom and compassion. The 4 steps are recognize, allow, investigate with kindness, and nurture. Let us walk through this process together, imagining a moment in the middle of the night when a sudden wave of anxiety washes over you. The first step is R, recognize. This is the moment you simply notice what is happening, without judgment. It is the moment you see Mara at the door. Instead of being immediately swept away by the feeling, you pause. You take a mental step back, and you gently name the primary emotion. You might whisper to yourself, anxiety is here, or this is fear, or sadness has come to visit. This simple act of recognition is incredibly powerful. It breaks the spell of unconscious reactivity. It interrupts the process of being completely fused with the emotion. You are no longer just an anxious person. You are the awareness that is recognizing the presence of anxiety. The second step is A, allow. This is the direct practice of acceptance, of letting go of our resistance. This is the act of opening the door and offering Mara a seat. It means giving the emotion permission to be there, just as it is, for this moment. You are not saying you like the feeling, or that you want it to stay forever. You are simply stopping the war against it. You can say to yourself, this is allowed to be here, or let it be. You allow the physical sensations of the anxiety, the tight chest, the racing heart, the knot in your stomach to be there, without tensing against them. You are allowing the wave of emotion to be a wave, knowing that it is part of the great ocean of your experience. When you stop fighting the wave, you stop creating the exhausting churn of resistance. The third step is I, investigate with kindness. Once you have allowed the feeling to be present, you can bring a gentle, non-judgmental curiosity to it. This is not a mental analysis of why you are anxious. It is an embodied investigation of what the experience actually feels like. You can ask yourself gentle questions and listen for the answers in your body. What are the physical sensations of this anxiety? Where do I feel them most strongly? Is the feeling hot or cold? Is it sharp or dull? Is it moving and vibrating, or is it heavy and solid? As you investigate, you can also ask a deeper question. What does this vulnerable part of me believe? What does it most need right now? The key to this step is the phrase with kindness. Your curiosity is not that of a cold scientist dissecting a specimen. It is the tender curiosity of a loving parent holding a child who is upset, trying to understand where it hurts. The fourth and final step is N, nurture. After you have connected with the direct experience of the emotion and the vulnerable part of you that is feeling it, the final step is to offer active care and compassion. This is where you bring in the warmth of metta. You can place a hand gently on your heart, or wherever in your body you feel the emotion most strongly. This simple act of touch can be incredibly soothing to the nervous system. Then, you can offer yourself the words that the wounded part of you needs to hear. You can speak to yourself as you would to a beloved friend or a small child. You might say, "It's okay, my dear. I am here with you. This feeling is painful, but you are safe." Or simply, "May you be held in kindness. May you be at peace." This step is about actively bringing love and reassurance to the places within you that are hurting. You are not waiting for someone else to comfort you. You are becoming the source of your own comfort, your own safety, your own unconditional love. Practicing RAIN is not a one-time fix. It is a way of fundamentally transforming your relationship with your inner life. When you consistently meet your difficult emotions in this way, you move from a state of internal warfare to one of compassionate friendship. You learn that your emotions are not your enemies. They are messengers, often carrying important information. Fear may be telling you about a place where you need to cultivate more safety or wisdom. Anger may be pointing to a boundary that has been violated. Grief is a testament to how deeply you have loved. By listening to them with the kind, spacious attention of RAIN, you can receive their messages, learn from them, and allow them to pass on their way, instead of letting them take over your entire house. In the profound quiet of a sleepless night, you learn that you have within you the capacity to be your own greatest healer. You can be the compassionate host who welcomes every guest, knowing that none of them are powerful enough to harm the vast, open and loving nature of your own true heart. We have learned to welcome the most difficult emotional guests into the house of our mind, meeting them with the warmth of compassion rather than the coldness of resistance. We have cultivated a resilient inner spaciousness. Now, we must turn our attention to the house itself and the world surrounding it. There is an undeniable and powerful link between the state of our outer world and the state of our inner world. A life filled with external clutter, frantic activity, and the relentless pursuit of more will inevitably create a mind that is cluttered, frantic, and restless. In a culture that constantly shouts that happiness is found in accumulation, the path to inner peace often lies in the opposite direction. It is found in the radical, joyful, and liberating art of simplicity. Our modern world is built on a foundational myth that more is better. More possessions, more money, more experiences, more achievements, more social connections. We are conditioned from birth to believe that satisfaction lies just around the corner, with the next purchase, the next promotion, the next vacation. This relentless pursuit creates a heavy and constant burden of anxiety, a burden that we carry with us to bed each night. First, there is the anxiety of acquisition. We must work harder and longer, often in jobs that do not nourish our spirit, to afford the lifestyle we are told we should want. This creates stress and financial pressure. Then, once we have acquired these possessions, we develop the anxiety of maintenance. Our things, which were supposed to serve us, now demand our service. We must clean them, organize them, repair them, insure them, and protect them. Our beautiful, spacious homes become cluttered storage units that we must constantly manage. But the most insidious anxiety is the anxiety of comparison. Through advertising and social media, we are given a constant, high-definition view into the curated lives of others, creating a perpetual feeling that what we have is not enough. This feeling of lack, of falling behind, is the very definition of dukkha, the pervasive unsatisfactoriness we have spoken of. And this external clutter and busyness directly translate into internal clutter and busyness. A life overscheduled with commitments creates a mind that has no room to breathe. An environment filled with objects creates a mind filled with attachments and distractions. We lie awake at night, and the monkey mind doesn't have to invent worries. It simply runs through the enormous to-do list generated by our complex lives. The path to a quieter mind often begins with the courageous choice to build a simpler life. There is a story from ancient Greece, from a philosophical tradition that shares much with Buddhist thought, that perfectly illustrates this principle of liberation through simplicity. The philosopher Diogenes the Cynic was a man who committed himself to a life of radical self-sufficiency. He believed that true happiness came not from fulfilling desires, but from eliminating them. He lived in a large ceramic jar in the marketplace of Athens and owned almost nothing. His final worldly possession was a simple wooden bowl, which he used to drink water from the public fountains. One day, as he was about to drink, he saw a young boy who had no cup. The boy simply knelt down, cupped his hands together, and drank the cool water directly from his palms. Diogenes watched this simple, elegant act and was struck by a profound revelation. He realized that the boy, with nothing, was more resourceful and ultimately freer than he was. Even his one simple bowl was an unnecessary complication, a burden he did not need to carry. In that moment, Diogenes threw his bowl away, exclaiming that a child had taught him a lesson in how to live. This act was not one of self-punishment or deprivation. It was an act of pure joy and liberation. He was shedding the final, unnecessary weight from his life. We can all learn from Diogenes by practicing what is known in the spiritual traditions as wise renunciation. This does not mean we must all live in a barrel. It means we can learn to joyfully and consciously let go of that which is not essential to our well-being and our peace. We can begin with our physical environment. Take one small area of your home, a single drawer, a bookshelf, your closet. Go through each item and hold it in your hands. Ask yourself with honest kindness, does this object truly serve me? Does it bring me beauty, joy, or genuine usefulness? Or is it simply taking up space, a relic of a past self, an object I keep out of habit or obligation? The process of decluttering your physical space can have an astonishingly powerful effect on your mental space. As you create physical order and spaciousness, you will feel a corresponding sense of inner clarity and calm. We can then apply this same principle of renunciation to our schedules. Our time is our most precious, non-renewable resource. Yet, we often fill our calendars with commitments and activities out of habit, or out of a fear of saying no. Look at your schedule, examine your commitments, ask of each one, is this truly nourishing me? Is this aligned with my deepest values? Or am I doing this because I feel I should? Learning the power of a polite and gentle no is a radical act of self-care. It frees up your time and energy to be invested in the people and activities that truly matter. This process of letting go of the non-essential, both in our homes and on our calendars, is not about emptiness. It is about creating space for the essential to flourish. When we are no longer frantically chasing the next external thing, a remarkable shift happens. Our attention, no longer scattered and grasping, becomes more refined. We begin to discover the profound and readily available joy in simple things. This is the quality known in Buddhism as santuti, or contentment. It is a deep and abiding satisfaction with what is already present. You begin to truly taste the rich, complex flavor of your morning cup of tea. You feel the simple, profound pleasure of the sun on your skin as you take a walk. You notice the intricate beauty of a single flower or the mesmerizing pattern of rain on a window pane. You rediscover the deep nourishment of an unhurried, fully present conversation with someone you love. You realize that you have been searching for treasure in distant lands, when there were diamonds scattered all around you in your own backyard. You learn that true wealth is not measured by the size of your bank account, but by the richness of your attention, the depth of your connections, and the unshakable quality of your inner peace. A cluttered, complex, consumer-driven life will, by its very nature, produce a cluttered, complex, and anxious mind. A simple life creates the fertile ground for a simple and peaceful mind. By consciously choosing to let go of the non-essential, you are not depriving yourself of anything of value. You are performing the ultimate act of self-love. You are throwing away your own metaphorical cup, releasing the heavy burdens you never truly needed to carry in the first place. You are discovering the profound, liberating, and joyful wealth of finally, truly having enough. Peace is a state of mind, not a destination. We have traveled far on this journey together, through the ancient pathways of the mind, exploring the nature of our suffering, its deep-rooted origins, the profound possibility of its cessation, and the noble, practical path that leads to freedom. We have spoken of mindfulness, compassion, and the intricate web of reality. And now, we arrive not at a final truth to be grasped, but at a living, breathing realization that can change the very texture of our daily lives. The ultimate teaching is this, simple and yet boundless in its implications, that the peace we so desperately seek in the world, in our achievements, in other people, is not a place to arrive at. It is not a prize to be won after a long and arduous struggle. It is a state of being, a quality of mind, a home that we can build and inhabit right here, right now, regardless of the circumstances swirling around us. Think back to the beginning of our journey. We pictured a person sitting in a quiet room, while a tempest of anxiety, plans, and regrets raged within their mind. The external world was still, but the internal world was chaotic. The great illusion of modern life is that if we can just control the external world, if we can arrange all the pieces of our lives in the perfect order, then the internal world will finally fall silent. If I get the promotion, if I find the perfect partner, if I buy the house, if I fix my relationships, then I will have peace. We treat peace as a fragile consequence of external perfection. We are taught to be architects of our environment, but remain strangers to our own minds. Buddhist wisdom gently inverts this entire paradigm. It suggests that peace is not the result of a perfect life, but the cause of a beautiful one. It is the unshakable foundation upon which we can build a life of meaning, even amidst the inevitable imperfections of existence. It is not about eliminating the storms of life, which is an impossible task, but about finding the unshakable stillness within the eye of the storm. There is a timeless story of a Zen master and his disciples, whose monastery was perched on a mountainside. One afternoon, the sky turned a dark, bruised purple, and a ferocious storm began to gather. The wind howled, ripping at the trees, and rain began to lash against the wooden walls. The younger disciples, filled with panic, scrambled about, trying to secure the shutters, move precious texts to higher ground, and reinforce the doors against the gale. They were a flurry of anxious activity, their minds mirroring the chaos of the storm outside. In the center of the main hall, the old master sat in serene meditation, his posture relaxed, his breathing slow and even. He was perfectly still. Seeing his unnerving calm, one of the anxious disciples ran to him. "Master," he pleaded, "how can you sit there so calmly? A terrible storm is upon us. It could destroy the monastery. We must do something." The master slowly opened his eyes. There was no fear in them, only a deep and profound tranquility. He looked at the frantic disciple and then gestured gently towards his own chest. "The storm," he said softly, "is out there. It is not in here. This story is not about inaction. It is not a lesson in apathy. The monastery might well need repairs after the storm passes. The lesson is about the fundamental separation between external events and our internal response. The storm of life is always brewing. It is the deadline at work, the unexpected bill, the difficult conversation, the diagnosis from a doctor, the traffic jam when you are already late. These are the winds and the rains of our human experience. We cannot command the clouds to part. We cannot silence the thunder. The reactive mind, the untrained mind, allows the external storm to become an internal one. The wind outside becomes the wind of anxiety inside. The rain outside becomes the tears of despair inside. We give the storm permission to enter the monastery of our mind and wreak havoc. The entire path we have explored, from right view to right concentration, is the practice of building a monastery of the mind that is weatherproof. It is about learning to let the winds of change howl around you, while you remain seated in the quiet center of your own being. This is not an esoteric, mystical ability reserved for masters on a mountain. It is your birthright. It is a capacity that can be cultivated. Every moment of your life becomes the training ground. Every challenge becomes the teacher. Life itself is the most profound meditation hall. You do not need a special cushion or a silent room, though those are helpful tools. The real practice happens when you are in line at the grocery store and impatience begins to bubble up. That is the moment for mindfulness. Can you feel the impatience in your body without being consumed by it? Can you observe the thought, "This is taking too long," without believing it is an absolute truth that must ruin your mood? That is the practice. The practice happens when a colleague criticizes your work. The storm of defensiveness and anger begins to gather. Can you create a space inside, a momentary pause, before you react? Can you listen with an open heart, practicing right speech instead of lashing out? Can you remember the teaching of not self, recognizing that the criticism is aimed at an action, not at the core of your being? That is the practice. The practice happens when you experience a moment of joy, a beautiful sunset, a kind word from a friend. The storm of attachment begins to brew, the desire to cling to that feeling and the fear that it will end. Can you savor the moment fully, without grasping? Can you appreciate its beauty while also accepting its impermanence? As we learn from Anika, that is the practice. This transforms the entire landscape of your life. The things you once saw as obstacles become opportunities. The difficult person in your life is no longer just a source of frustration. They are your teacher of patience and compassion. The mundane chore of washing dishes is no longer a bore. It is an opportunity to practice present moment awareness, feeling the warmth of the water, the texture of the soap. Life stops being a series of problems to be solved and becomes a series of moments to be lived. Peace, in this context, is not a dull, grey, emotionless state. It is the opposite. It is a mind that is so stable and clear that it can experience the full spectrum of life with extraordinary richness and intimacy. When the mind is not cluttered with the noise of worry and resistance, it becomes profoundly sensitive to the beauty and poignancy of existence. Joy is felt more purely. Sadness is met with a tender, compassionate embrace rather than with fear. The peaceful mind is not a weak mind. It is an incredibly resilient and powerful mind. It does not break in the storm. It learns how to bend, how to flow, how to find its stability even when the ground is shaking. Therefore, let go of the idea that you are on a quest to find peace. You are on a journey to cultivate it. You are a gardener of your own heart. You cannot force a flower to bloom, but you can provide it with the right soil, water, and sunlight. The Eightfold Path is the recipe for creating fertile soil in your mind. Every act of kindness, every moment of mindfulness, every wise intention is like water and sunlight. The blooming of peace is the natural result. It was there all along, a seed waiting in the darkness. So as we draw this part of our conversation to a close, let this be the central understanding that you carry forward. Your life, exactly as it is right now, is your path. The people in it are your fellow travelers. The challenges you face are your curriculum, and the peace you seek is not over the next horizon. It is in the quiet space between your thoughts, in the gentle rhythm of your breath, in the courageous opening of your heart. It is the still point in the turning world. The storm is out there. It does not have to be in here. We have walked a long and quiet road together, a path illuminated by a wisdom unearthed over 2.5 millennia ago. Our journey began with a simple, honest acknowledgement, the courage to look directly at the subtle and pervasive discontent of our lives, the feeling of being perpetually off balance that we call dukkha. We did not turn away. Instead, we looked closer, and we discovered that the source of this unease was not in the world's failings, but in the ceaseless grasping and aversion of our own minds, the relentless thirst of Tanya. With this diagnosis, a profound hope dawned, the realization of Nirodha, the truth that a cessation of this suffering is not only possible, but is our innate potential. And finally, we were given a map for that journey inward, the practical, life-altering technology of the Noble Eightfold Path, a guide to transforming our every view, intention, word, and action into a step toward freedom. This entire exploration has been a process of transformation, a gentle but radical shift in perspective. It has been a journey from seeing ourselves as passive victims of life's chaotic storms, to realizing we can become the calm and conscious architects of our own inner world. It is the move from being a leaf tossed in the wind to becoming the mountain that feels the wind blow, yet remains steadfast, rooted, and whole. If there is one truth to carry with you from our time together, let it be this: peace is not the absence of noise, but the presence of a profound stillness within the soul. It is not found in a silent retreat, a perfect job, or a flawless relationship. It is not a destination you must struggle to reach, but a home you can choose to build, right in the center of your own heart. The materials are simple, available in every moment: the timber of your breath, the nails of your attention, the clear windows of your compassion. You do not need to call yourself a Buddhist. You do not need to adopt any label or dogma. This wisdom is not a possession of one culture or religion. It is a universal human heritage, a science of the mind that invites you to test it, to see for yourself if it holds true. Take only what resonates, what feels useful and kind. The true testament of the path is not what you believe, but how you live, how you relate to your own mind, and how you treat the world around you. The great journey of 1,000 miles, as it is said, begins with a single step, but perhaps it is even simpler than that. Perhaps the entire journey begins and ends with a single, conscious breath. It begins in the very next moment you choose to be present, to meet your experience with awareness rather than resistance. This is where the work is done. This is where the freedom is found. May you walk your path with courage. May you meet your own heart with boundless compassion, and may you discover the unshakable peace that has been waiting for you, patiently, within. The path is here. The time is now. The journey home is already begun.